Dedication from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. To Douglas Hyde, LL.D., D.Litt., President of the Gaelic League, because alumni of one Irish college, and sons of fathers of the selfsame church, striving to swell the sum of Irish knowledge, dear Crivian Evin, we unite our search, and each of us as Irish bardic brother, in songs of Connaught and the Gael, has found. This poem book is yours, for to no other, by such a kindly friendship, am I bound. A. P. G. End of introduction. This recording is in the public domain. Introduction from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. Of anthologies of Irish verse there have been many. Miss Charlotte Brooks's Irish Poetry, a volume of translation of her own from the Irish, led the way in the year 1789, and was followed by Hardiman's Irish Minstrelsy in 1831, with metrical translation by Thomas Furlong, Henry Grattan Curran, and John de Ulton. Both these volumes contained the Irish originals, as well as the translations from them, and both volumes were extremely valuable for their preservation of those originals, but suffered from the over-ornate, and indeed often extremely artificial English verse into which they were translated. Highly finished that verse undoubtedly was, here and there as fine as much of a Macpherson's Ossian, but it was, as a rule, as untrue a presentment in English verse of Irish Gaelic poetry as Pope's version of the Iliad and Dryden's translation of the Aeneid are untrue expressions of the spirit and form of the Greek and Latin originals. As a matter of fact, these translators from the Irish had not learnt the lesson. Not long afterwards, learnt by Edward Walsh and Sir Samuel Fergusson, that the use of that poetical Hiberno English speech, recently made popular by Douglas Hyde, Synge, Lady Gregory, and others, was a far truer vehicle for the expression, in translation or adaptation, of Irish Gaelic poetry. Walsh indeed published his own translation of Reliques of Ancient Jacobite Poetry, 1844, and his more characteristic Irish Popular Songs, 1847. It might almost be thought, as a protest against the artificial character of previous collections of the kind, not excepting Montgomery's Anthology, which preceded his second volume by a year, Dr. Drummond's Ancient Irish Minstrelsy, translated by himself, which appeared in 1852, is an attempt to hark back to the 18th century and early 19th century formal school of poetry, but has fine passages, such as his Cuchulain's Chariot, expanded from a passage in The Breach in the Plain at Niothenay. This wise tendency to treat Irish poetry in an Irish way, through the medium of what I have already called Hiberno English speech, was lost sight of by the young islanders, whose work was as a rule oratorical rather than poetical, when verse became the medium, or in very large part the medium, of their political propaganda. Thomas Davies and his friends fell more under the influence of Scott and Macaulay than under that of the Gaelic poets immediately preceding them or contemporary with them. No doubt they took a pleasure in printing Irish words in Irish characters here and there in some of their national lyrics, and now and again we find in Davies more particularly the Irish human touch, which, when he had time to write poetry rather than verse, so distinguishes him. But as a rule the slurring appeals to patriotism on the part of the young island poets is little better than versified oratory. Thomas Moore was more individual as a poet than any of the young Ireland group, yet whilst he undoubtedly possessed the Irish characteristics of wit and fancy, sentiment and satire, he had nothing of the spirit of the Irish countryside in his composition. Irish was not spoken by his parents or neighbours in Dublin, and when years afterwards he was seeking materials for his History of Ireland in the library of Trinity College, Dublin, he was amazed to find what a great body of Gaelic literature in prose and verse, utterly new to him, lay collected there before his eyes. The classics inspired the Anacreontics of Thomas Little. His poetical tales, coloured though they were by his Celtic imagination as well as by his West Indian recollections, were entirely derived from Eastern, never from Irish sources. The only purely Irish influence upon his work was that of Irish music, and that influence has made his Irish melodies, in part at any rate, imperishable. In spite of his fine as well as faithful translations from the Irish, the influence of Byron upon Callanan is obvious, and Gerald Griffin, though much nearer to the spirit of his native soil as a poet than most of his contemporaries, was drawn, like so many young Irishmen of letters, under London literary influences, and was never more than half emancipated from them. Mangan, on the other hand, had the good fortune to be able to study in translation some of the finer specimens of Gaelic verse, and his essentially mystic genius and fine musical ear drew from that old Irish poetry as something which is lacking in the writings of his contemporaries, Ferguson and Edward Walsh alone excepted. Yet Mangan, like Moore, went to the East for some of his inspiration, though, unlike Moore, he drew more of it from contemporary Guryan poetry, which he translated, adapted, and imitated with characteristic power. But Mangan, at the end of his career, did a hasty piece of work of a thoroughly Irish kind in his translations of the Gaelic poets and poetry of Munster, from John O'Daly, the Gaelic publisher and bookseller, few of which, as Mr. D. J. O'Donoghue, his biographer, rightly says, are of high poetical merit. But it is only fair to add, in Mr. O'Donoghue's words, that Mangan, who did not live to see them published, would have given them, had he survived their appearance, as he often did with his earlier poems, an additional polish or other necessary revision. The vulgar verse which exploited the stage Irishman before his time was transformed by Samuel Lover into a new medium for the expression of humorous character sketches of Irish life. These lyrics, written to Irish popular airs, or original compositions by the author, had a great vogue in their day, and on the strength of the reputation achieved by them Lover published an Anglo-Irish anthology of Irish poetry, Lyrics of Ireland, in 1858. Much pains has been bestowed on the collection and classification of the poems in this illustrated anthology. Its Anglo-Irish character is evident from the small proportion of either translations or adaptations from the Irish that it contains, but one poem in 10, and sentimental poems are too predominant in the volume. Much of it, moreover, is mere convivial and comic, historical and political verse. But it is, nevertheless, the most comprehensive as well as typical collection of Irish verse that has yet appeared, and, as it claims to be, the most national, in the widest sense of the word. Crofton Croker's Popular Songs of Ireland is a collection of Anglo-Irish folk songs and ballads, gleaned from an unfortunately narrow field, which though much still remains to be done to supplement it, more especially in the north of Ireland. Dr. Joyce has in his folk song volume of 1906 added a considerable number of Irish popular ballads in the English tongue to Croker's Anthology. Meantime, other anthologies of Irish poetry were seeing the light. Charles Gavan Duffy's, afterwards Sir Charles Gavin Duffy's, well-known volume of the Ballad Poetry of Ireland, which had reached a 40th edition in 1869. Hayes's 2 volumes of the Ballads of Ireland, 1855, and a very comprehensive but far from choice collection, and The Harp of Erin, a small but interesting anthology, edited by Ralph Varian and published in 1869, in which northern writers are more adequately represented than elsewhere. To this may be added The Spirit of the Nation, a collection of the best of the poems published in that famous political journal edited by Gavan Duffy, and Michael Joseph Barres's collection The Songs of Ireland, 1845, to which Thomas Davis wrote a stirring introduction. Denis Florence MacCarthy's The Book of Irish Ballads, 1846, and Hercules Ellis's Songs of Ireland and Romances and Ballads of Ireland, 1849 and 1850, and William Johnston's Boyne Book of Poetry and Song, an Orange Collection, 1859. With the exception of a volume of my own in the Mayfair Library, and its title, Songs of Irish Wit and Humour Shows, of limited scope, no anthology of Irish poetry appeared for many years, until the interesting American collection of Alfred M. Williams. The circumstances under which that anthology was compiled were remarkable. Mr. Williams, a reporter of the New York Tribune during Fenian days, was imprisoned in Dublin under the Arms Act for carrying a weapon which, as an American citizen, he has always been in the habit of doing. He solaced his enforced leisure by the study of Irish poetry, and eventually published with Messrs. Osgood and Co. of Boston his scholarly and discriminating volume, The Poets and Poetry of Ireland. This anthology had the advantage of Longfellow's criticism as it was going through the press, and is distinguished by the interesting essays which preface most of its sections and the critical and biographical notes which deal with the more important Irish poets. Like Lover's collection, it is divided into sections relating to the various types of Irish poetry, but more stress is laid by Williams upon translations from the Irish, and generally speaking it may be said to be more expressive of Gaelic than Anglo-Irish genius. It was followed by Mr. T. D. Sullivan's Emerald Gems, 1885, The Emerald Wreath, and three American Irish collections, The Ballad Poetry of Ireland, in Ford's National Library, 1886, Connolly's Household Library of Ireland's Poets, 1887, and the New Universal Song Book, P. T. Kennedy, 1887. Meantime there have been a fresh flowering of Irish poetry brought about by what has been called the Irish literary Renaissance, whose first inspirers were Sir Samuel Fergusson, Mangan, Edward Walsh, and Aubrey de Vere, but to the influence of Standish O'Grady through his heroic history of Ireland, the main impulse to this movement was undoubtedly given. Mr. Yeats might have been drawn away to lead a school of English mystic poets but for that influence, and Dr. Todhunter and other writers would probably also have been contented to cast in their lot with the English poets amongst whom they lived. Mr. O'Grady himself, an Irish scholar, though perhaps more Greek than Irish in expression, fired the imagination of his friends and drew them to the contemplation of Irish heroic themes, for which he had shown so fine a feeling. Catherine Tynan, who had fallen under the spell of Rossetti, may be claimed as a disciple of his, as may Mr. T. W. Rolleston, but undoubtedly Mr. Yeats was his greatest convert, and the founder and his influence of the Neo-Celtic school of Irish poetry, and in conjunction with Lady Gregory of the Irish Literary Theatre on its heroic side. It is remarkable how his faithfulness to technique has impressed itself upon his followers. For, like his brother poet A.E., he is an artist to his fingertips. If he has been blamed for the limited amount of his poetical output, he has at any rate a complete answer that he has put artistic endeavour into each poem he has written, and that he has, as a propagandist, spoken and written more for the creation of Irish literary and graphic art, and with more effect, than any Irishman of his time; and finally, that his latest poetical work shows a remarkable departure in fresh and advanced directions. Mr. Yeats is also one of our anthologists, and his collection, A Book of Irish Verse, shows a more catholic taste than could have been expected from one of his fastidious word-for-word finish. Halliday Sparling's Irish Minstrelsy (1887) had its vogue before the new school of Irish symbolists had arisen under Mr. Yeats's aegis, and Mr. Hickson's collection of verse by members of Trinity College, Dublin (1894), and his wife's, née Catherine Tynan, delightful florilegium of Irish love songs, also anticipated that poetical period, as to a large extent did the most ambitious and comprehensive volume of Irish verse that had yet appeared, A Treasury of Irish Poetry in the English Tongue (1890), edited by Dr. Stopford Brooke and Mr. T. W. Rolleston, afterwards his son-in-law. This anthology is more of a collection than a selection of Anglo-Irish poetry, or rather, as the editors describe it, Irish poetry in the English tongue, for it contains not a few fine translations and adaptations from the Irish. It is, as it promises to be, a compendium of poetical literature in the making, a history of Irish poetry in the English tongue, as shown by examples of every variety of it, deserving critical recognition. Another important collection rather than selection of Irish poetry, and exhibiting great pains in its gathering, is Mr. Cooke's The Dublin Book of Irish Verse, which has the advantage of being a practically up-to-date anthology. It is arranged in the main in chronological order, and typical illustrations are given, chiefly from Anglo-Irish writers, though it also contains many good translations from the Irish. It has no literary formation, and no biographical sketches of the poets presented, or such short critical estimates of the work as are to be found in the Brooks Roustan collection, but there are about 30 pages of useful notes referring to the sources of the poems, or explanatory of the allusions in them. Other important anthologies, and the latest in the field, are Mrs. Tynan Hinkson's and Mr. Patrick Gregory's recently published volumes entitled The Wild Harp and Modern Anglo-Irish Verse, respectively. The first volume, like Mr. Yeats's, contains the poems that have made a special appeal to the anthologist, poems likely to capture for English ears, sensitive to our wild music, just such strains as might be sounded by the strings of a harp, something thin, strange, forlorn, something a little unearthly and exquisite, else there would be no reason to garner it. This method of selection shuts out reflective poetry, unless the reflection is brief and shining. It bars propagandist poetry altogether. Mr. Gregory's anthology only deals with poems whose authors were living when his selection was made. He only asks that his poets should be of Irish blood. He is not careful that their work should be Irish in atmosphere. He is very catholic in his taste, and introduces his readers some half a dozen writers of finely distinctive verse whose work is either quite fresh or has been hitherto overlooked by anthologists. John Eglinton, Helen Lanyon, Sir Samuel Kiteley, Florence Wilson. Though partial to the ballad, and himself a master of this form of verse, he lays special stress on the symbolist lyrics of what we may call the Irish Georgian school of writers. Mr. Thomas MacDonagh, Mr. George Plunkett, Mr. Darrell Figgis, Mr. J. H. Cousins, and Mr. Sidney Royce Lysaught. The most notable new ballad in his book is Miss Emily Lawless's The Third Trumpet, one of the last poems she ever wrote, and a very remarkable one. While dealing with a bibliography of the subject, certain British anthologies may be mentioned which have introduced Irish verse to the general body of readers. The first and most important of these is that beautiful volume, Lyra Celtica, selected with great discrimination by Mrs. William Sharp from the best Irish, Scotch, Welsh, Cornish and Breton poetry available in the year 1896, and prefaced by a striking introduction from the pen of her husband, who, as a Celtic writer, has adopted the nom de plume of Fiona Macleod. Next comes Mr. Brimley Johnson's charmingly illustrated 4 volumes of British ballads, now to be had for 1 shilling in every man's library, in which there is an interesting Irish selection. It has been followed by the Oxford Book of Verse, edited by Sir Quiller Couch, whose Celtic instincts have led him to admit not a few Irish poems into his volume. Conspicuous amongst the writers for the Book of Georgian Poets are some writers of Irish blood, and much room has been found in Mr. Walter Gerald's Living Poets for the work of Irishmen and Irishwomen. Finally, attention should be called to 2 notable anthologies drawn straight from the Irish Gaelic. Dr. Sigerson, like Miss Brooke, had preferred to make all the translations from the Irish contained in his Bards of the Gael and Gaul. This volume appeared in 1897, but much of the work had been done in the 60s, when, following in the footsteps of Edward Walsh, Dr. Sigerson, in co-operation with the late John O'Daly, accomplished for Munster lyrics what Dr. Hyde had since achieved for the religious and love poetry of Connaught in his 2 memorial books, The Love Songs of Connaught and The Religious Songs of Connaught. In his collection, which is prefaced by a peculiarly interesting and as well as scholarly introduction, and contains a wealth of valuable notes, Dr. Sigerson covers practically the whole ground of Gaelic poetical literature, not only making translations in the metres and spirit of Irish verse of every kind, heroic, religious, sententious, humorous, descriptive, erotic, hitherto undealt with, but being always ready to break a lance with former translators, such as Ferguson, Walsh and Mangan, by presenting fresh versions of his own of famous Gaelic originals. Lastly, we come to Miss Eleanor Hull's delightful volume, The Poem Book of the Gael. This is written much on the same lines of Dr. Sigerson's book, but with these differences. Besides making some excellent translations of her own from the Irish, she gives her readers the best metrical translations made by the leading Irish poets of this century and the last, and by such brilliant prose writers as Mr. Standish Hayes O'Grady, Professor Kuno Meyer and Lady Gregory. She covers as much ground as Dr. Sigerson, though she does not go into as close detail in the matter of the origins of Irish verse and its peculiar metric, but she presents a very fine prose translation from her own hand of the Soltaire Naran, a 9th century Irish version of Paradise Lost and Regained, attributed to Dengus the Chaldee, and never rendered into English before, and she prints in translation an interesting set of recently collected Irish folk poems, religious and secular, as well as translations in verse and prose from contemporary Gaelic poetry. In what respects does my own anthology of Irish poetry differ from those described? Roughly speaking, it may be said to be a selection of Irish poetry, old and new, old and modern Gaelic poems in English verse translation, and Anglo-Irish poetry of the last 2 centuries, which have most appealed to me as illustrating the leading features of Gaelic, Hiberno, English, and Anglo-Irish verse. I do not suggest that there are not other poems, or even many poems equal in merit to those chosen for this volume, but I have been careful to make such a selection under the 7 heads which appear to me most illustrative of the special characteristics of Irish poetry, as I hope will be found to yield as much variety of thought, style, and metrical expressions as could well be contained within the compass of from 300 to 400 pages. My headings are Nature Poetry, Wonder Poetry, Love Poetry, War Poetry, National Poetry, Countryside Poetry, Spiritual and Philosophical Poetry, and Religious Poetry. I have been led to adopt this order of subjects for good reasons. The earliest Irish poetry consists of mystical nature hymns, and nature enters largely into the poems of the Cuchulainn and Fenian sagas, while nature poems pure and simple are attributed to Finn mac Cumhaill himself. But interblend with the visible beauties of this world are the invisible enchantions and supernatural appearances of the fairies, the denizens of that other world which, amongst the Gaels, was neither in heaven or hell, but an intermediate space. Love poetry finds early expression amongst the Gaels, much earlier expression from both sexes than is to be found in any other European literature. The Irish were without verse epics, but their prose romances are interspersed with lyrics of many kinds, including love lyrics of poignant beauty. Amongst these may be mentioned Deirdre's farewell to Alba, her lament over the bodies of Nacy, Arden, and Anley, and her passionate rejection, a year later, of King Connor's attempts to win her love. The lamentation over their lovers of the two Credfas, Fan's noble farewell to Cuchulainn, and Grain's sleep song over Dermot when they are hiding from the pursuit of Fionn, are love poems of the rarest quality. I have placed the Irish war poetry next, because it follows naturally upon the love contests between chieftain and chieftain, and also because it stretches from pagan to early Christian times, and through them, in its many modes of daring, triumph, and defeat, down to the rebellion of '98, flickering out finally in Smithy O'Brien's and the Fenian rebellions. But it is not until the tribal system had been broken for ever that there emerged that spirit of common Irish nationality which makes Irish patriotic poetry so distinctive. The love for Ireland is, no doubt, most tenderly and perfectly expressed by St. Columba, but it is not until the clans had united in common defence of the whole country, and until Ireland began to be described by her bards by such loving names as the Little Dark Rose, or the Silk of the Cleugh, or again by such titles as Connélie, or Kathleen Ní Houlihan, or the Shan Van Vocht, that a spirit of nationalism had been abused sufficient to endure and bear, because it hoped for all things. This patriotic poetry, beginning as suggested with St. Columba, carried on by Keating the historian in his delightful Letter to Erin, and then spreading it in every direction over Ireland and overseas with Irish exiles. It is in no sense confined to poets of any particular creed or political belief. It is as strong in Emily Lawless as in D'Arcy McGee, as fervently expressed by Sir Samuel Ferguson as Stephen Gwynne, or Standish O'Grady, or A.E. I doubt whether there is any poetical literature in the world so suffused with this genuine love of country, or in which it is expressed with more delicate feeling. Folk songs have come to us in countless numbers from the Gaelic and Anglo-Irish alike, but the Gaelic folk songs are, without doubt, the finest. Specimens of these have been given in translation with all the skill commanded by Mangan, Ferguson, Walsh, Dr. Sigerson, Dr. Hyde, Mr. P. J. McCall, Miss Eleanor Hull, and Mr. Thomas Macijonah. For their collection, warm obligations are due to Hardiman, Edward Walsh, Dr. Sigerson, Dr. Hyde, Mr. McCall, Mr. P. H. Pearce, and to the Gaelic League and Irish Folk Song Society. They would ill be spared, speaking as they do straight from the heart of the Irish people. Lastly, we have to deal with Irish religious poetry and the spiritual and philosophical poetry which has followed it in recent years, and which is the most remarkable outcome of contemporary Irish literary thought. unless indeed the new Irish literary drama may be said to rival it as an expression of the modern Irish mind, though let it be noted that three of its most prominent representatives, Mr. W. B. Yeats, Mr. George Russell, A.E., and Mr. Padraic Colum, are also leading dramatists of the Irish literary theatre. Early Irish religious poetry is remarkable not only for its fine metrical form, but for its cheerful spirituality, its open-air freshness, and for its occasional touches of kindly humour; and the later religious poetry of O'Daly and kindred writers as preserved by Dr. Hyde, whilst of a more sombre character is beautifully fervid and extraordinarily finished in its technique. And what may be called the wild flowers of Irish religious poetry, the short prayers, invocations, and charms are as delightful in their degree as all readers of Dr. Hyde's religious songs of Connaught must confess. And now I hand over to my readers the song wreath I have been long gathering for them. May they grow to love, as much as I do, what I have elsewhere described as these sprays of druid, oak, and yew, and red branch rowans, hoar with dew, and sedges sighing from the strand, whence Oisin rode to fairyland, and Festal's blooms, whose bardic breath pleasured the proud Elizabeth; heath plumes that o'er our princes sang, exultant to the battle clang; pale immortelles, whose plaintive lay still murmurs o'er their hero clay; and wild flowers plucked with artless art from out the Irish peasant's heart; wood shamrocks, e'en from that lawn, the Drinun, Dun, and Canavon, arbutus from Killarney's shore; bog myrtle, magical lusmore, and every blossom else above, dark Rosaline's own rose of love. Alfred Perceval Graves. End of introduction.
Ode from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org, recording by Elizabeth Canwright, Colorado Springs. We are the music makers, and we are the dreamers of dreams, wandering by lone sea breakers and sitting by desolate streams. World losers and world forsakers, on whom the pale moon gleams, yet we are the movers and shakers of the world forever, it seems. With wonderful deathless ditties, we build up the world's great cities, and out of a fabulous story, we fashion an empire's glory. One man with a dream at pleasure shall go forth and conquer a crown, and three with a new song's measure can trample an empire down. We, in the ages lying in the buried past of the earth, built Nineveh with our sighing, and Babel itself with our mirth, and o'erthrew them with prophesying to the old of the new world's worth. For each age is a dream that is dying, or one that is coming to birth. End of Ode. This recording is in the public domain.
The Scribe from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org, recording by Chad Horner from Ballyclare in County Antrim, Northern Ireland, situated in the northeast of the island of Ireland. The Scribe from the Early Irish. A leafy grove surrounds me quite, for my delight the blackbirds flit, while o'er my little book's lined words sweet warbling birds their scribe salute. The cuckoo in his mantle grey cries on all day through lush tree tops, and verily God shield me still, well speeds my quill beneath the copse. End of The Scribe. This recording is in the public domain. Recording by Chad Horner from Ballyclare in County Antrim, Northern Ireland, situated in the northeast of the island of Ireland.
The Song of Morgan from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. The Song of Morgan by Morgan, a prehistoric bard. From the books of Lecan and Ballymote. I am the wind on the sea for might. I am a wave of the deep for length. I am the sound of the sea for fright. I am a stag of 7 points for strength. I am a hawk on a cliff for lightness. I am a tear of the sun for brightness. I am a salmon in wisdom's fountain. I am a lake that afar expands. I am knowledge and poesy's mountain. I am a spear in a spoiler's hands. I am a god who fashions smoke from magic fire for a druid to slay with. Who but I will make clear each question the mind of man still goes astray with? Who but myself the assemblies knows of the house of the sages on high sleeve myth? Who but the poet knows where in the ocean the going down of the great sun is? Who 7 times sought the fairy fords without or fear or injury? And who declareth the moon's past ages and the ages thereof that have yet to be? Who out of the shadowy haunts of Tethra hitherward draweth his herds of kine? Who segregated them from each other to browse the plains of the watery brine? For whom will the fish of the laughing ocean be making welcome, if not for me? Who shapeth as I can the spell of letters, a weapon to win them out of the sea? Invoke a satirist, fit incantations to weave for you, O folk of the waves. Even me, the druid, forth furnishing ogham letters on oaken staves. Even me, the parter of combatants, even me who the fairy height enter to find a cunning enchanter to lure with me your shoals to light. I am the wind of the sea for might. End of The Song of Amorgan. This recording is in the public domain.
First Winter Song from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org. Take my tidings, stags contend, snows descend, summer's end. A chill wind raging, the sun low keeping, swift to set o'er seas high sweeping. Dull red the fern, shapes are shadows, wild geese mourn o'er misty meadows. Keen cold limes, each weaker wing, icy times, such I sing, take my tidings. End of First Winter Song. This recording is in the public domain.
King and Hermit from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Colleen McMahon. King and Hermit, a 10th century poem first published and translated by Professor Kuno Meyer. Marvin, brother of King Gwar of Connaught, in the 7th century had renounced the life of a warrior prince for that of a hermit. The king endeavored to persuade his brother to return to his court, when the following colloquy took place between them. Gwar. Now, Marvin, hermit of the grot, why sleepest thou not on quilted feathers? Why, on a pitch pine floor instead, still make thy bed, despite all weathers? Marvin. I have a shieling in the wood. None save my God has knowledge of it. An ash tree and a hazelnut. Its 2 sides shut, great oak boughs roof it. 2 heath-clad posts beneath a buckle of honeysuckle its frame are propping. The woods around its narrow bound, swine fattening mast are richly dropping. From out my shieling not too small, familiar all, fair paths invite me. Now, blackbird, from my gable end, sweet sable friend, thy notes delight me. With joy the stags of Oak Ridge leap into their clear and deep-banked river. Far off Red Roiny glows with joy, Muckraw, Moinmoy, in sunshine quiver. With mighty mane a green-barked yew upholds the blue, his fortress green. An oak uprears against the storms, tremendous forms, stupendous scene. Mine apple tree is full of fruit, from crown to root a hostel's store. My bonny nutful hazel bush leans branching lush against my door. A choice pure spring of cooling draught is mine. What prince has quaffed a rarer? Around it cresses keen, O king, invite the famishing wayfarer. Tame swine and wild, and goat and deer assemble here upon its brink. Yea, even the badger's brood draw near, and without fear lie down to drink. A peaceful troop of creatures strange, they hither range from wood and height. To meet them slender foxes steal at vesper peal, O my delight! These visitants, as to a court, frequent resort to seek me out. Pure water, brother Gwar, are they, the salmon gray, the speckled trout. Red rowans, dusky sloes and mast, O unsurpassed and God-sent dish! Blackberries, whortleberries blue, red strawberries to my taste and wish. Sweet apples, honey of wild bees, and after them of eggs a clutch. Haws, berries of the juniper, who, king, could cast a slur on such? A cup with mead of hazelnut outside my hut in summer shine, or ale with herbs from wood and spring, are worth, O king, thy costliest wine. Bright bluebells o'er my board I throw, a lovely show my feast to spangle. The rush's radiance, oaklets gray, briar tresses gay, sweet goodly tangle. When brilliant summer casts once more her cloak of color o'er the fields, sweet tasting marjoram, pignut, leek, to all who seek her verdure yields. Her bright red-breasted little men their lovely music then outpour. The thrush exults, the cuckoos all around her call and call once more. The bees, earth's small musicians, hum, no longer dumb, in gentle chorus. Like echoes faint of that long plaint, the fleeing wildfowl murmur o'er us. The wren, an active songster now, from off the hazel bough pipes shrill. Woodpeckers flock in multitudes, with beauteous hoods and beating bill. With fair white birds, the crane and gull, the fields are full, while cuckoos cry. No mournful music, heath poults dun, through russet heather sunward fly. The heifers now, with loud delight, summer bright, salute thy reign. Comfort smooth for toilsome loss, 'tis now to cross the fertile plain. The warblings of the wind that sweep from branchy wood to sapphire sky, the river falls, the swan's far note, delicious music floating by. Earth's bravest band, because unhired, all day untired, makes cheer for me. In Christ's own eyes of endless youth, can this same truth be said of thee? What though in kingly pleasures now, beyond all riches thou rejoice, content am I, my Saviour good, should on this wood have set my choice. Without 1 hour of war or strife, through all my life at peace I fare. Where better can I keep my tryst with our Lord Christ, O brother Gwar? Gwar. My glorious kingship, yea, and all thy sire's estates that fall to me, my Marvin I would gladly give, so I might live my life with thee. End of King and Hermit. This recording is in the public domain. Saint Columba in Iona, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Colleen McMahon. Saint Columba in Iona, from an Irish manuscript in the Burgundian Library, Brussels. Delightful would it be to me from a rock pinnacle to trace continually the ocean's face, that I might watch the heaving waves of noble force, to God the Father chant their staves of the earth's course, that I might mark its level strand, to me no lone distress, that I might hark the sea-bird's wondrous band, sweet source of happiness, that I might hear the clamorous billows thunder on the rude beach, that by my blessed church side I might ponder their mighty speech, or watch surf-flying gulls the dark shoal follow with joyous scream, or mighty ocean monsters spout and wallow, wonder supreme. That I might well observe of ebb and flood all cycles therein, and that my mystic name might be for good but Coolry Erin. That gazing toward her on my heart might fall a full contrition, that I might then bewail my evils all, though hard the addition. That I might bless the Lord who all things orders for their great good, the countless hierarchies through heaven's bright borders, land, strand, and flood. that I might search all books, and from their chart find my soul's calm. Now kneel before the heaven of my heart, now chant a psalm. Now meditate upon the King of Heaven, chief of the Holy Three. Now ply my work, by no compulsion driven. What greater joy could be? Now plucking dulse upon the rocky shore, now fishing eager on, now furnishing food unto the famished poor, in hermitage anon. The guidance of the King of Kings hath been vouchsafed unto me. If I keep watch beneath his wings, no evil shall undo me. End of St. Columba in Iona. This recording is in the public domain.
The Irish Wolfhound by Dennis Florence McCarthy. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. From The Foray of Con O'Donnell. His nature, his stature tall, his body long, his back like night, his breast like snow, his foreleg pillar-like and strong, his hind leg like a bended bow, rough curling hair, head long and thin, his ear a leaf so small and round, not Bran, the favourite dog of Finn, could rival John Macdonald's hound. As fly the shadows o'er the grass, he flies with step as light and sure. He hunts the wolf through Toston Pass, and starts the deer by Leesanore. The music of the Sabbath bells, O Con, has not as sweet a sound than when along the valley swells the cry of John Macdonald's hound. End of the Irish Wolfhound. This recording is in the public domain. The Rock of Cashel by Sir Aubrey de Vere. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. Royal and saintly Cashel, I would gaze upon the wreck of thy departed powers, not in the dewy light of matin hours, nor the meridian pomp of summer's blaze, but at the close of dim autumnal days, when the sun's parting glance through slanting showers shed o'er thy rock-throned battlements and towers such awful gleams as brighten o'er decay's prophetic cheek. At such a time, methinks, there breathes from thy lone courts and voiceless aisles a melancholy moral, such as sings on the lone traveller's heart amid the powers of vast Persepolis on her mountain stand, or Thebes half buried in the desert sand. End of The Rock of Cashel. This recording is in the public domain. Glengarriff by Sir Aubrey de Vere. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. Gazing from each low bulwark of this bridge, how wonderful the contrast, dark as night! Here, amid cliffs and woods, with headlong might, the black stream whirls, through ferns and drooping sedge, 'neath twisted roots moss-brown and weedy ledge, gushing aloft from yonder birch-clad height, leaps into air a cataract snow-white, falling to gulfs obscure. The mountain ridge, like a grey warder guardian of the scene, above the cloven gorge gloomily towers. O'er the dim woods a gathering tempest lowers, save where athwart the moist leaves' lucid green a sunbeam, dancing, glancing through disparted showers, sparkles along the rill, diamond sheen. A sunburst on the bay! Turn and behold! The restless waves, resplendent in their glory, Sweep glittering past yon purpled promontory. Bright is Apollo's breastplate bathed in gold. Yon bastioned islet gleams. Thin encysts are rolled, translucent, through each glen. A mantle hoary veils those peaked hills, shapely as e'er in story, Delphic, or Alpine, or Vesuvian old, minstrels have sung from rock and headland proud. The wild wood spreads its arms around the bay. The manifold mountain cones, now dark, now bright, now seen, now lost, alternate from rich light to spectral shade, and each dissolving cloud reveals new mountains as it floats away. End of Glengarriff. This recording is in the public domain. Siberia by James Clarence Mangan. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. In Siberia's wastes the ice wind's breath woundeth like the toothed steel. Lost Siberia doth reveal only blight and death, blight and death alone. No summer sun shines, night is interblent with day. In Siberia's wastes alway the blood blackens, the heart pines. In Siberia's wastes no tears are shed, for they freeze within the bram. Nought is felt but dullest pain, pain acute, yet dead. Pain as in a dream, when years go by, funeral paced, yet fugitive. When man lives and doth not live, nor die. In Siberia's wastes are sands and rocks, nothing blooms of green or soft, but the snow peaks rise aloft, and the gaunt ice blocks, and the exile there is one with those, they are part, and he is part, for the sands are in his heart, and the killing snows. Therefore in those wastes none curse the Tsar. Each man's tongue is cloven by the north blast, who heweth nigh with sharp scimitar, and such doom each drees, till hunger gnawn, and cold slain, he at length sinks there, yet scarce more a corpse than ere his last breath was drawn. End of Siberia. This recording is in the public domain. A Sigh for Knockmany by William Carlton. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. Take, proud ambition, take thy fill Of pleasures won through toil or crime. Cold learning, climb thy rugged hill, And give thy name to future time. Philosophy, be keen to see Whate'er is just, or false, or vain. Take each thy meed, but oh, give me To range my mountain glens again. Pure was the breeze that fanned my cheek, As o'er Knockmany's brow I went, When every lonely dell could speak In airy music, vision sent. False world, I hate thy cares and thee, I hate the treacherous haunts of men. Give thee back my early heart to me, Give back to me my mountain glen. How light my youthful visions shone, When spanned by Fancy's radiant form, But now her glittering bow is gone, And leaves me but the cloud and storm. With wasted form, and cheek all pale, With heart long seared by grief and pain, Dun row, I'll seek thy native vale, I'll tread my mountain glens again. Thy breeze once more may fan my blood, Thy valleys all are lovely still, And I may stand where oft I stood In lonely musings on thy hill. But ah, the spell is gone, no art In crowded town or native plain Can teach a crushed and breaking heart to pipe the song of youth again. End of a sigh for Knockmany. This recording is in the public domain. Sonnet by Edward Dowden. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. I've wept tears, and learnt, I fear, sad ways of searching for a smile, and I can guess the secret of a wan mouth's droopingness, and to know which eyes are they that waste their gaze on the hid grave of hope. Yet ne'er the less my heart leaps up to utter thanks and bless our earth which bears sweet flowers, and to the glad face of these unwearied waters. Thanks to them for brief, intense, bright moments when we see our life stand clear in joy. We kiss the hem of God's robe in a rapture, and are whole on wind-swept hilltops by the mystery of ocean on still morns, or when the soul springs to the lark in a fine ecstasy. End of sonnet. This recording is in the public domain.
Four Ducks on a Pond by William Allingham. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Four ducks on a pond, a grass bank beyond, a blue sky of spring, white clouds on the wing. What a little thing to remember for years, to remember with tears. End of Four Ducks on a Pond. This recording is in the public domain.
Foam Flakes by Standish O'Grady. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. Gotten in the strife of waters, twinkling little stars of foam, restless, beautiful white daughters of a father made to roam, under sun and under moon, under many a cloudy sky, to a low monotonous tune, ye go glancing, dancing by, fleeting shapes of rarest beauty, poetry and life and joy. I would err in manhood's duty if I passed you like a boy. I will lie down here and weave a web of similes to you in the long ryegrass, and cleave a little lane to see you through, shooting, quivering, restless flamelets on a restless heart you seem, fairy tenanted white hamlets, rocked of earthquakes on the stream, whitest clouds of bluest ether, pressed in aeons' hands as snow, thrown in multitudes together on the streams of earth below, forms as undefined as faces seen in dreamland, ghosts of white, flowers that grew in heavenly places, fed on heavenly air and light. I would cast my lot with you, in your bundle would be bound, shining maidens, bid adieu to this barren, steady ground, dance with you amid the ridges and the madness of the stream, sleep and kiss you where the midges on the silent water gleam. End of Foam Flakes. This recording is in the public domain. From Shannon to Sea by E. G. A. Holmes. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. The Shannon bore me to thy bosom wide. I wandered with it on its winding way, by fields of yellow corn and new mown hay, and far blue hills that rose on either side, and low dark woods that fringed the ebbing tide. And ever, as its waters neared the west, out the slumber of its broadening breast, faint momentary ripples rose and died, and rose again before the breeze, and grew to wavelets dancing in the noonday light, and these were changed to waves of ocean blue, and creek and headland faded from the sight, and oh, at last I floated free on the long rollers of the open sea. End of From Shannon to Sea. This recording is in the public domain. Eternal Vigil by E. G. A. Holmes. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. Oh, once again upon thy heaving breast I floated, like a sea-bird when it braves the shoreward onset of thy flowing waves, and leaps triumphant on each rushing crest. Round me in dark magnificent unrest the billows of the wild Atlantic rolled far, far away into the gates of gold, the sunlit portals of the stormy west. Oh, never wearied in the hush of noon, thy billows break the paths of golden sleep, they break the dream and lustre of the moon. Earth knows the hours of darkness thou dost keep eternal vigil, still thy surges white flash through the deepest gloom of starless night. End of Eternal Vigil. This recording is in the public domain. Birds by Moira O'Neill. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. Sure, maybe ye've heard the storm thrush whistling bold in March, before there's a primrose peeping out, or a wee red cone on the larch whistling the sun to come out o' the clouds, and the wind to come over the sea. But for all he can whistle so clear and loud, he's never the bird for me. Sure, maybe ye've seen the song thrush, after an April rain, slip from in under the drippin' leaves, wishful to sing again, and low wi' love when he's near the nest, and loud from the top o' the tree. But for all he can flutter the heart in your breast, he's never the bird for me. Sure, maybe ye've heard the cushadoo callin' his mate in May, when one sweet thought is the whole of his life, and he tells it the one sweet way. But my heart is sore at the cushadoo, filled with his own soft glee, over and over his me and you. He's never the bird for me. Sure, maybe ye've heard the redbreast singin' his lone on a thorn, mindin' himself o' the dear days lost, brave wid his heart forlorn. The time is in dark November, and no spring hopes has he. Remember, he sings, remember, aye, thon's the wee bird for me. End of Birds. This recording is in the public domain. Sheeps and Lambs by Catherine Tynan Hinkson. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. All in the April morning, April airs were abroad. Sheep with their little lambs passed me by on the road. The sheep with their little lambs passed me by on the road. All in the April evening I thought on the Lamb of God. The lambs were weary and crying with a weak human cry. I thought on the Lamb of God, going meekly to die. Up in the blue, blue mountains, dewy pastures are sweet, Rest for the little bodies, rest for the little feet, rest for the Lamb of God. Up on the hilltop green, only a cross of shame, two stark crosses between. All in the April evening, April airs were abroad. I saw the sheep with their lambs, and thought on the Lamb of God. End of Sheeps and Lambs. This recording is in the public domain. April in Ireland by Nora Hopper, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. She hath a woven garland all of the sighing sedge, and all her flowers are snowdrops grown on the winter's edge. The golden looms of Tir na Anog wove all the winter through her gown of mist, and raindrops shot with a cloudy blue. Sunlight she holds in one hand, and rain she scatters after, and through the rainy twilight we hear her fitful laughter. She shakes down on her flowers the snows less white than they, then quickens with her kisses the folded knots o' May. She seeks the summer lover that never shall be hers, fain for gold leaves of autumn she passes by the firs. Though buried gold it hideth, she scorns her sedgy crown, and pressing blindly sunwards, she treads her snowdrops down. Her gifts are all a fardel of wayward smiles and fears, yet hope she also holdeth, this daughter of the years, a hope that blossoms faintly, set upon sorrow's edge. She hath a woven garland, all of the sighing sedge. End of April in Ireland. This recording is in the public domain. Glorny's Weir by Winifred M. Letts, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. At night when the world was sleepy and still, I'd wake, maybe, in the depths o' the dark, and think of the river below the hill that flows so fast by the ruined old mill. Never a sound besides would I hear, but the water rowing at Glorny's Weir. I'd think to myself how day would come soon, the water hens wake, and the wagtails stir, the kingfisher flash in the light of the noon from the willowy banks of Knockmaroon. But through the day you could scarcely hear the voice of the river at Glorny's Weir. I'd wake in the depth o' the dark, maybe, when the friendly voices of the day were still, but the river would lift its song for me down from the mountains off to the sea, and glad was I in the night to hear the roar of the waters at Glorny's Weir. End of Glorny's Weir. This recording is in the public domain. The 9 Green Glens by John Stevenson, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. Sorrow and strife be far away from these sweet vales and hills for aye. Oh, who would think of sword and death, that feels the living sea's sweet breath blow through the 9 green glens to-day? Who sees the blue smoke skyward curled from many a lowly glen hearthstone, each with a pleasure and a pain, a pathos and romance its own, each little household a world? Who that can hear the voice of morn, the whisper of the springing corn, who understands the babbling rills, the weird, wild music of the hills, and nameless voices heaven born? Sure am I that the Antrim glen holds mysteries beyond our ken, and that there moves, in wind and sea, and rock and stream, and weed and tree, a life not far from the life of men. Dear Mother Earth, I know within that leaf and I are next of kin, The rowan high by blood is near, the primrose is a sister dear. Brother of mine, the mountain win, now on the ocean shore I stand, the sea worn cliff on either hand, and farther north no other land, only the long sea heave and roll between me and the Arctic pole. End of the 9 Green Glens. This recording is in the public domain. Lough Bray 1 by Rose Kavanagh. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. A little lonely moorland lake, its waters brown and cool and deep. The cliff, the hills behind it, make a picture for my heart to keep. For rock and heather, wave and strand, wore tints I never saw them wear. The June sunshine was o'er the land, before 'twas never half so fair. The amber ripples sang all day, and singing spilled their crowns of white upon the beach in thin pale spray that streaked the sober strand with light. The amber ripples sang their song, when suddenly from far o'erhead a lark's pure voice mixed with the throng of lovely things about us spread. Some flowers were there, so near the brink their shadows in the wave were thrown, while mosses green and grey and pink grew thickly round each smooth dark stone. And over all the summer sky shut out the town we left behind. 'Twas joy to stand in silence by one bright chain linking mind to mind. Oh, little lonely mountain spot, your place within my heart will be, apart from all life's busy lot, a true, sweet, solemn memory. End of Lough Bray 1. This recording is in the public domain. Lough Bray 2 by Standish O'Grady. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. Now memory, false, spendthrift memory, disloyal treasure keeper of the soul, this vision chain shall never wrong from thee, nor wasteful years, effacing as they roll. O still, blue lake, high cradled in the hills! O sad waves, filled with little sobs and cries! White, glistening shingle, hiss of mounting rills, and granite-hearted walls, blotting the skies, shine, sob, gleam, gloom forever. Oh, in me, be what you are in nature, a recess to sadness, dedicate the mystery within, afar, in the soul's wilderness. Still let my thoughts, leaving the worldly roar, like pilgrims, wander on thy haunted shore. End of Lough Bray 2. This recording is in the public domain.
An Awakening from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. An Awakening by Alice Furlong. O spring will waken the heart of me with the rapture of blown violets. When the green bud quickens on every tree, the spring will waken the heart of me, and dews of honey will rain on the lea, tangling the grasses in silver nets. Yes, spring will waken the heart of me with the rapture of blown violets. End of An Awakening. This recording is in the public domain. The Little Waves of Breffni. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. The Little Waves of Breffni by Eva Gore Booth. The grand road from the mountain goes shining to the sea, and there is traffic in it, and many a horse and cart. But the little roads of Cluna are dearer far to me, and the little roads of Cluna go rambling through my heart. A great storm from the ocean goes shouting over the hill, and there is glory in it and terror on the wind, but the haunted air of twilight is very strange and still, and the little winds of twilight are dearer to my mind. The great waves of the Atlantic sweep storming on their way, shining green and silver with the hidden herring shoal, but the little waves of Breffni have drenched my heart in spray, and the little waves of Breffni go stumbling through my soul. End of The Little Waves of Breffni. This recording is in the public domain. On Great Sugarloaf, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. On Great Sugarloaf by George A. Green. Where Sugarloaf, with bare and ruinous wedge, cleaves the grey air to view the darkening sea, we stood on high, and heard the north wind flee, through clouds storm-heavy fallen from ledge to ledge. Then sudden, "Look!" we cried, the far black edge of south horizon oped in sun-bright glee, and a broad water shone, one moment free, ere darkness veiled again the wavering sedge. Such is the poet's inspiration, still too evanescent, coming but to go, such the great passions showing good in ill, quick brightnesses, love-lights, too, burned low, and such man's life which flashes heaven's will between two glooms, a transitory glow. End of On Great Sugarloaf. This recording is in the public domain. A June Day, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. A June Day, by John Todhunter. The very spirit of summer breathes to-day, here where I sun me in a dreamy mood, and laps the sultry leas, and seems to brood tenderly over those hazed hills far away. The air is fragrant with the new-mown hay, and drowsed with hum of myriad flies pursued by twittering martins. All yon hillside wood is drowned in sunshine till its green looks grey. No scrap of cloud is in the still blue sky, vaporous with heat, from which the foreground trees stand out, each leaf cut sharp. The whetted scythe makes rustic music for me as I lie, watching the gambols of the children blithe, drinking the season's sweetness to the lees. End of A June Day. This recording is in the public domain.
The Swimmer by Roden Noel. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. Who would linger idle, dallying would lie, when wind and wave a bridal celebrating fly? Let him plunge among them who hath wooed enough, flirted with them, sung them in the salt sea trough. He may win them onward on a buoyant crest, far to seaward, sunward, ocean born to rest. Wild wind will sing over him, on a blithe sea bosom swims another too, swims a live sea blossom. A grey winged sea view, grape green all the waves are, by whose hurrying line half of ships and caves are buried under brine. Supple shifting ranges, lucent at the crest, with pearly surface changes, never laid to rest. Now a dipping gunwale momently he sees, now a fuming funnel, or red flag in the breeze. Arms flung open wide, lip the laughing sea, for playfellow, for bride, claim her impetuously. triumphantly exult with all the free, buoyant, bounding splendour of the sea. And if while on the billow we airily he lay, his awful wild playfellow filled his mouth with spray, reft him of his breath, to some far realms away he would float with death. A wild wind would sing over him, and the free foam over him waft him sleeping sunward, all alone with death. Ah, alone with death, in a realm of wondrous dreams and shadow-haunted ocean gleams. End of The Swimmer. This recording is in the public domain. Spring, The Travelling Man by Winifred M. Letts. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. Spring, the travelling man, has been here. Here in the glen he must have passed by in the grey of the dawn, when only the robin and wren were awake, watching out with their bright little eyes. In the midst of the brake the rabbits maybe heard him pass, stepping light on the grass, whistling careless and gay at the break o' the day. Then the blackthorn, to give him delight, put on raiment of white, and all for his sake. The gorse on the hill, when he rested an hour, grew bright with the splendour of flower. My grief that I was not aware of himself being there. It is I would have given my dower to have seen him set forth, whistling careless and gay, in the grey of the morn, by gorse, bush, and thorn, on his way to the north. End of Spring, The Travelling Man. This recording is in the public domain. A Fine Day on Loch Swilly by William Alexander. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. Soft slept the beautiful autumn in the heart, on the face, on the loch. Its heart, whose pulses were hushed till you knew the life of the tide, but by a wash on the shore, a whisper like whispering leaves in green abysses of forest. Its face, whose violet melted in roseate gold, roses and violets dying into a tender mystery of soft, impalpable haze. Calm lay the woodlands of Fan. The summer was gone, yet it lay on the gently yellowing leaves, like the beautiful poem whose tones are mute, whose words are forgot, but its music sleepeth for ever within the music of thought. The robin sang from the ash, the sunset's pencils of gold no longer wrote their great lines on the bowls of the odorous limes, or bathed the tree tops in glory, but a soft strange radiance there hung, in splinters of tenderest light. And those who looked from Glengolan saw the purple wall of the scalp, as if through an old church window, stained with a marvellous blue. From the snow-white shell strand of inch you could not behold the white horses lifting their glittering backs, tossing their manes on Dunree, and the battle of Makamish was lulled in the delicate air. As in old pictures the smoke goes up from Abraham's pyre, so the smoke went up from Rathmullen, and beyond the trail of the smoke was a great deep fiery abyss of molten gold in the sky, and it set a far track up the waters, ablaze with gold like its own, over the fire of the sea, over the chasm in the sky. My spirit, as by a bridge of wonder, went wandering on, and lost its way in the heaven. End of A Fine Day on Loch Swilly. This recording is in the public domain. Frost Morning by William Alexander. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. The morn is cold, a whiteness newly brought, lightly and loosely powders every place the panes among yon trees that eastward face flash rosy fire from the opposite dawning court, as the face flashes with a splendid thought, as the heart flashes with a touch of grace, when heaven's light comes on ways we cannot trace, unsought, yet lovelier than we ever sought. In the blue northern sky is a pale moon, through whose thin texture something doth appear like the dark shadow of a branchy tree, fit morning for the prayers of one like me, whose life is in mid-winter, and must soon come to the shortest day of all my year. End of the Frost Morning. This recording is in the public domain. The Wind from the West by Ella Young. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. Blow high, blow low, O wind from the west, you come from the country I love the best. Oh say, have the lilies yet lifted their heads above the lake water that ripples and spreads? Do the little sedges still shake with delight, and whisper together all through the night? Have the mountains the purple I used to love, and peace about them, around and above? O wind from the west, blow high, blow low, you come from the country I loved long ago. End of The Wind from the West. This recording is in the public domain.
To the Mountain Ben Bulben, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. To the Mountain Ben Bulben by Maureen Fox. I would I were a wide-winged hawk, beloved, with all the silence of thy peaks my own, hovering above thy fragrant sun-steeped valleys, or on salt winds from height to headland blown. I would I were a little wind of night-time, all the great winds blow through the upper skies, but I would wander where through dew-starred myrtle, like faint moon-flames, thy secret thoughts arise. I would I were a falling star, beloved, one of a host exultant, swift and free, then would I burn the sundering leagues of darkness, and flaming to thy heart be lost in thee. End of To the Mountain Ben Bulben. This recording is in the public domain. Anach, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. Anach by Daryl Figgis. There is no peace now, however things go, no peace where the ways of men ring loud, save in a secret place that I know, hidden as in a cloud. All the high hills stand clustering round, arched to protect it from trouble and noise, the great strong hills that sing without sound, and speak with no voice. There lies Carrock, the mute low lake, and Bannafrawer lying aloft, peacefully sleeping, or even if they wake, lapping low and soft. Upon the high hilltops the heather may be crying, and over the hilltops the voices of men are heard, but here only water lapping and sighing, or the wail of a bird. Peace, peace, and peace from the inner heart of dream, more full of wisdom than speech can tell, dropped like a veil round the show of things that seem with an invisible spell. End of Anach. This recording is in the public domain. The Fairy's Lullaby, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. The Fairy's Lullaby, from the Gaelic, by Eleanor Hull. My mirth and merriment, soft and sweet art thou, child of the race of Conn art thou. My mirth and merriment, soft and sweet art thou, of the race of Colin Conn art thou. My smooth green rush, my laughter sweet, my little plant in the rocky cleft, were it not for the spell on thy tiny feet, thou wouldst not here be left, not thou. Of the race of Colin Conn art thou, my laughter sweet and low art thou. As you crow on my knee, I would lift you with me. Were it not for the mark that is on your feet, I would lift you away, and away with me. End of The Fairy's Lullaby. This recording is in the public domain. The Fairy Host, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. The Fairy Host, from the Irish tale Lága MacCrimmon's Visit to the Fairy Realm of Magmel. Pure white the shields their arms upbear, with silver emblems rare overcast. Amid blue glittering blades they go, the horns they blow are loud of blast. In well-instructed ranks of war, before their chief they proudly pace, cerulean spears over every crest, a curly-tressed, pale-visaged race. Beneath the flame of their attack, bare and black turns every coast. With such a terror to the fight, flashes that mighty vengeful host. Small wonder that their strength is great, since royal in estate are all. Each hero's head a lion's fell, a golden yellow mane lets fall. Comely and smooth their bodies are, their eyes the starry blue eclipse. The pure white crystal of their teeth laughs out beneath their thin red lips. Good are they at man-slaying feats, melodious over meats and ale. Of woven verse they wield the spell, at chesscraft they excel the Gael. End of The Fairy Host. This recording is in the public domain. The Song of the Fairies, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. The Song of the Fairies, when they made the road across the bog of Lumrach for the King Medir, from the Irish by A. H. Leary. Pile on the soil, thrust on the soil, red are the oxen around to toil. Heavy the troops that my words obey, heavy they seem, and yet men are they. Strongly as piles are the tree trunks placed, red are the wattles above them laced. Tired are your hands, and your glances slant, one woman's winning this toil may grant. Oxen are ye, but revenge shall see, men who are white shall your servants be. Rushes from Teffa are cleared away, grief is the price that the man shall pay. Stones have been cleared from the rough Meath ground, where shall the gain or the harm be found? Thrust it in hand, force it in hand, nobles this night as an ox troop stand. Hard is the task that is asked, and who from the bridging of Lamrach shall gain or rue. End of The Song of the Fairies. This recording is in the public domain.
Sea Maiden's Vengeance by George Sigerson, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. A great gallant king of yore ruled shore and sea of Erin. Noble then all section shone 'neath Rigden, son of daring. O'er the main of slow grey seas, with a breeze, lay his whole way. To behold his foreign friend, he would wend north to Norway. Sped his splendid vessels three, when the sea calmed its motion, Till they, sailing, sudden stop on the ridgy top of ocean, They refused to wend away. Fixed they lay, nowhere faring. Then into the dark, deep deeps Ruadh leaps, greatly daring, when he dived for their release. Through the sea's surging waters, there he found the forms divine of its 9 beauteous daughters. These, with clear soft accents said, it was they stayed his sailing, that to leave 9 maidens sweet, were feat few prevailing. He with these 9 nymphs remained, where there reigned shade nor sadness, 'neath the waters, where no wave ever gave gloom to gladness. One of these his bride became, still his fame forced him forward, But he vowed to greet her lips when his ships came from Norward. Once on board he bade them sail, past the pale billows breaking, And with one bound make their course to the Norse of quick speaking. O'er the salt sea then they rode, and abode sweet the story, Till the 7th glade year ends with their friends great in glory. Ruadh then ran out once more on the hoar salt sea faring, Speeding forth his ships to reach to the bright far beach of Erin. Warped and wrong the royal will, solemn still is promise spoken, He should have gone to the maid, as he said, nor pledge have broken. When the Prince of Tuered's name unto Mured's borders came, Around the shore foul his fame, a sound arose of sad acclaim. 'Twas the sweet voiced women's song, borne along in music's motion, Following Ruadh's fleeing sail, o'er wail of wave worn ocean. Sailing in bronze boat they came, no flank frame made by mortal, Those 9 maidens, fair and fierce, till they pierce Albin's portal. Dire and dread the deed then done, there by one 'mid the water, Ruadh's son, her own she slew, vengeance new, sweet in slaughter. Then upraising high her hand, forth she cast him on the strand. Shrank the shore, and shuddering foam, from King Ruadh's welcome home. End of Sea Maiden's Vengeance. This recording is in the public domain. Song of Maelduin by Thomas William Rolleston, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. There are veils that lift, there are bars that fall, There are lights that beacon, and winds that call. Goodbye! There are hurrying feet, and who dare not wait, For the hour is on us, the hour of fate, The circling hour of the flaming gate. Goodbye! 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 Aye, fair, fair they shine through the burning zone, The rainbow gleams of a world unknown. Goodbye! And oh, to follow, to seek, to dare, When step by step in the evening air Floats down to meet us the cloudy stair. Goodbye! 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 The cloudy stair of the brig o' dread Is the dizzy path that our feet must tread. Goodbye! O children of time, O nights and days, That gather and wander and stand and gaze, And wheeling stars in your lonely ways. Goodbye! 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 The music calls and the gates unclose, Onward and onward the wild way goes. Goodbye! We die in the bliss of a great new birth. O fading phantoms of pain and mirth! O fading loves of the old green earth! Goodbye! 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 End of the Song of Male Doing. This recording is in the public domain. The Island of Sleep by William Butler Yeats. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. Fled foam underneath us and round us, a wandering and milky smoke, high as the saddle girth, covering away from our glance the tide, and those that fled and that followed from the foam pale distance broke. The immortal desire of immortals we saw in their faces, and sighed. I mused on the chase with the Fenians and Bran, Sigolin, Lomair, and never a song sang Niamh. And over my finger-tips came now the sliding of tears, and sweeping of mist-cold hair, and now the warmth of sighs, and after the quiver of lips. Were we days long or hours long in riding, when rolled in a grisly peace? An isle lay level before us, with dripping hazel and oak, and we stood on a sea's edge we saw not, for whiter than new-washed fleece fled foam underneath us, and around us a wandering and milky smoke, and we rode on the plains of the sea's edge, barren and grey, grey sand on the green of the grasses, and over the dripping trees, dripping and doubling landward, as though they would hasten away, like an army of old men longing for rest from the moan of the seas. But the trees grew taller and closer, immense in their wrinkling bark, dropping, a murmurous dropping, old silence and that one sound, for no live creature lived there, no weasels moved in the dark. Long sighs arose in our spirits, beneath us bubbled the ground, and the ears of the horse went sinking away in the hollow night, for, as drift from a sailor's slow drowning, the gleams of the world and the sea and the sun ceased on our hands and our faces, on hazel and oak leaf the light, and the stars were blotted above us, and the whole of the world was one, till the horse gave a whinny, full cumbrous with stems of the hazel and oak. A valley flowed down from his hoofs, and there in the long grass lay, under the starlight and shadow, a monstrous slumbering folk, their naked and gleaming bodies poured out and heaped in the way, and by them were arrow and war-axe, arrow and shield and blade, and dew-blanched horns, in whose hollow a child of 3 years old could sleep on a couch of rushes, and all inwrought and inlaid, and more comely than man can make them with bronze and silver and gold. And each of the huge white creatures was huger than 80 men. The tops of their ears were feathered, their hands were the claw of birds, and shaking the plumes of the grasses and the leaves of the mural glen, the breathing came from those bodies, long, warless, grown whiter than curds. The wood was so spacious above them that he who had stars for his flocks could fondle the leaves with his fingers, nor go from his dew-cumbered skies. So long were they sleeping, the owls had builded their nests in their logs, filling the fibrous dimness with long generations of eyes. And over the limbs and the valley the slow owls wandered and came, now in a place of star-fire, and now in a shadow place wide. And the chief of the huge white creatures, his knees in his soft star-flame, lay loose in the place of shadow. We drew the reins by his side. Golden the nails of his bird-claws, flung loosely along the dim ground. In one was a branch soft shining, with boughs more many than size, in midst of an old man's bosom. Owls ruffling and pacing around, sidled their bodies against him, filling the shade with their eyes. and my gaze was thronged with the sleepers. No, neither in house of a can, in a realm where the handsome are many, or in glamours by demons flung, are faces alive with such beauty, made known to the salt eye of man, yet weary with passions that faded when the sevenfold seas were young. And I gazed on the bell branch sleep's forebear, far sung by the Senachis. I saw how they slumbered, grown weary, there camping in grasses deep, of wars with the wide world, and pacing the shores of the wandering seas, laid hands on the bell branch and swayed it, and fed of unhuman sleep. Snatching the bourne of Neom, I blew a lingering note. Came sound from those monstrous sleepers, a sound like the stirring of flies. He, shaking the fold of his lips, and heaving the pillar of his throat, watched me with mournful wonder out of the wells of his eyes. I cried, "Come out of the shadow, can of the fales of gold, and tell of your goodly household, and the goodly works of your hands, that we may muse in the starlight, and talk of the battles of old. Your questioner, Oisin, is worthy, he comes from the Fenian lands." Half open his eyes were, and held me, dull with smoke of their dreams. His lips moved slowly in answer, no answer out of them came. Then he swayed in his fingers the bell branch, slow dropping a sound in faint streams, softer than snowflakes in April, and piercing the marrow like flame. Wrapped in the wave of that music, with weariness more than of earth, the moil of my centuries filled me, and gone like a sea-covered stone were the memories of the whole of my sorrow, and the memories of the whole of my mirth. And a softness came from the starlight, and filled me full to the bone. In the roots of the grasses, the sorrels, I laid my body as low, and the pearl pale Neom lay by me, her brow on the midst of my breast. And the horse was gone in the distance, and years after years 'gan flow. Square leaves of the ivy moved over us, binding us down to our rest. And man of the many white croziers, a sentry there I forgot, how the fetlocks drip blood in the battle, when the fallen on fallen lie rolled, how the falconer follows the falcon in the weeds of the heron's plot, and the names of the demons whose hammers made armour from Conhor of old. And, man of the many white croziers, a sentry there I forgot, that the spear shaft is made out of ashwood, the shield out of osier and hide, how the hammers spring on the anvil, on the spearhead's burning spot, how the slow blue-eyed oxen of Finn low sadly at evening tide. But in dreams, mild man of the croziers, driving the dust with their throngs, moved round me, of seamen or landsmen, all who are winter tales. Came by me the cans of the red branch, with roaring of laughter and songs, or moved as they moved once, love-making, or piercing the tempest with sails. Came Blanid, Macnessa, tall Fergus, who feastward of old time slunk, Cook Barak, the traitor, and Warward, the spittle on his beard never dry, Dark Bala, as old as a forest, Carborne, his mighty head sunk, helpless, men lifting the lids of his weary and death-making eye. And by me, in soft red raiment, the Fenians moved in loud streams, and Granier, walking and smiling, sewed with a needle of bone. So lived I, and lived not, so wrought I, and wrought not, with creatures of dreams, in a long iron sleep, as a fish in the water goes dumb as a stone. End of the Island of Sleep. This recording is in the public domain. On the Waters of Moyle by George Sigerson, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. Translated from the Irish. Time passed pleasantly with the swan children on the lake. In the day they conversed with their kindred and friends who had encamped around. At night they sang slow, sweet, fairy music that made sorrow sleep. This term closed, they bade farewell to all, and went forth to the waters of Moyle, where they suffered from icy storms. Fionnuala, covering her young brothers with her wings, sang, "Life is weary here, great the snowing here, night is dreary here, bleak the blowing here." On a day they saw a fairy cavalcade at the river Banner, and were told that Lear and their friends were celebrating the Feast of Age. Happy but for their absence, Fionnuala made this lay: Gay this night Lear's royal house chiefs carouse, mead flows amain. Cold this night his children roam chill home the icy main. For our mantles fair are foined feathers curving round our breasts. Often silken robes we had, purple clad we sat at feasts. For our viands here, and wine, bitter brine and pallid sands, oft the hazel mead they serve in carved vessels to our hands. Now our beds are the bare rock, smit with shock of heavy seas. Often soft breast down we'll spread for the bed of grateful ease. Though 'tis now in frost our toil to swim Moyle with drooping wings, oft we rode as royal wards, and our guards were sons of kings. End of On the Waters of Moyle. This recording is in the public domain. The Return of the Children of Lear by George Sigerson. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. In the extremity of their suffering, frozen in Eres sea, the brothers were inconsolable. Fionnuala asked them to believe in the true God, and they were relieved, and suffered no more. At the end of their final term, they arose and went very lightly and airily towards the city of their father, and thus they found the place void, desolate, with nought but the bare green paths, and forests of nettles, without house, without fire, without tribes. Then the four drew close together, and thrice they raised on high the cry of wailing. Then Fionnuala spoke this lay: "Strange is all this place to me, no house, no home, no gladness. As 'tis thus, this place to see, alas, my heart, what sadness! I no bound, no sound, no ember, no group where princes gather. Not thus do we remember its old days with our father. No horn, no goblet dancing, no halls of light each morrow, no youth, no proud steed prancing, all signs portend us sorrow. All the void that here I see, alas, my pain grows stronger, makes it, this night, clear to me, its loved lord lives no longer. City, where of old we knew all arts of joy exerted, what a fate of woe and rue thou art this night deserted! Dark our doom and tragical, condemned the waves to wander. Near such ill fate magical did mortal yet fall under. Now the city populous gives weeds and woods its favour. No man lives who'd welcome us to this our homestead ever. End of The Return of the Children of Lear. This recording is in the public domain. The Sea God's Address to Bran by W. M. Hennessy. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. From the Early Irish. To Bran, as in his coracle he glide, A level of blue tides appears the deep, when o'er my shadowy steeds I lose the rein. A flowery plain my chariot seems to sweep. Yea, what to Bran uplifted on the prancing of his proud skiff is smooth blue glancing sack. Beneath this burning chariot of two wheels, a breadth of bloom delightful laughs for me. Bran, from his skiff side, views the joyous onset of waves red crested in the sunset glow. I see, over all the plain of sports flower bedded, of crimson headed flowers, the faultless flow. Sea horses glisten in the ocean azure, far as Bran's eyes can measure, but to mine rivers a stream of honey bright are pouring, for storing in my land beyond the brine. Brilliant the sea whereon the skiff is guided, dazzling the surf divided by thine hand. Yellow and azure, its white brightness vary. It is indeed a light and airy land. The speckled salmon from the wave outleaping, where Bran goes sweeping through the ocean's wiles, are calves and lambs, nor fishes of the water, whose slaughter ne'er our patty of peace defiles. And though thou seest but one lone chariot rider, a glider o'er the full bloom'd pleasant plain, from countless viewless steeds and chariots golden, thine eyes are holden by the mocking main. Large is the plain, with happy hosts 'tis crowded, its colours in unclouded glory fall. A stream of silver, stairs of golden splendour, a full free welcome tender unto all. A joyous game, enchanting and delicious, above the luscious wine is featly played, by men and gentlewomen set in session, without transgression, in the leafy shade. Along a woodland's top, that greenly bridges blue airy ridges, has thy Curragh swum. Beneath thy very prow its shade impeaches with blushing peaches the empurpled plum. A wood where vagrant fruit and flower are wreathing, with clusters of the fragrant breathing vine. A wood of foliage rich and golden rain, a wood without decaying or decline. We have been here since first the earth had being, yet neither seeing here old age nor death, and hence we fear not any base beginning of mortal sinning shall cut short our breath. Then let not Bran relax his steadfast rowing, the land of women shall be showing soon. Yea, even bright with every joyful blessing, he shall be pressing ere the rise of moon. End of the Sea God's address to Bran. This recording is in the public domain. The Spear of Kaltar by W. M. Hennessy. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. The following nearly literal version from the ancient tale of the Bruadin da Derga gives an idea of the fabled weapons of the Irish heroes. The famous sword of Finn was the child of this terrible spear. What further sawest thou? By the royal chair a couch I saw. 3 heroes sat thereon. In their first greyness, they grey dark their robes, grey dark their swords, enormous of an edge, to slice the hair on water. He who sits midmost of the 3 grasps with both hands the spear of 50 rivets, and so sways and swings the weapon, which would else give forth its shout of conflict, but he keeps it in, thrice essaying to escape his hands. It doubles, darting on him, heel to point, a cauldron at his feet, big as the vat of a king's guest-house. In that vat a pool, hideous to look upon, of liquor black. Therein he dips and cools the blade by times, else all its shaft would blaze, as though a fire had wrapped the king post of the house in flame. Resolve me now, and say what 'twas I saw. Not hard to say, these champion warriors three are Senka, beauteous son of Iliu, dubbed Thak, the fierce Ulidian Adakop, and Goibnen, son of Eognech, and the spear in hands of Dut-Thak is the famous Lon of Celta, son of Oedgar, which erst some wizard of the Tuath de Danann brought to battle at Moytura, and there lost. Found after, and these motions of the spear, and sudden sallies, hard to be restrained, affect it oft as blood of enemies is ripe for spilling, and a cauldron then, full of witch brewage, needs must be at hand to quench it, when the homicidal act is by its blade expected. Quench it not, it blazes up, even in the holder's hand, and through the holder, and the door planks through, flies forth to sate itself in massacre. End of the Spear of Celta. This recording is in the public domain. The Legend of Fergus Leaderson by Sir Samuel Fergusson. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. From an unknown bard of the 10th century. One day King Fergus, Lead Luthmar's son, drove by Loch Ruaidh, and his journey done, slept in his chariot, wearied. While he slept, a troop of fairies o'er his cushion crept, and first his sharp dread sword they filched away, then bore himself feet forward to the bay. He with a chill touch woke, and at a snatch it fortuned him in either hand to catch a full grown sprite, while 'twixt his breast and arm he pinned a youngling. They in dire alarm writhed hard and squealed. He held tighter. Then "Quarter and ransom!" cried the little men. "No quarter he, nor go ye hence alive, Unless ye gift me wit, the art to dive, Long as I will, to walk at large and breathe The seas, the lochs, the river floods beneath." "We will." He loosed them. Herbs of virtue they placed in his ear holes, or, as others say, a hood of fairy texture o'er his head, Much like a cleric's cochail, drew, and said, "Wear this, and walk the deeps, but well beware Thou enter nowise in Loch Ruaidh there." Clad in his cowl, through many deeps he went, And saw their wonders, but was not content, Unless Loch Ruaidh also to his eyes Revealed its inner under mysteries. Thither he came, and plunged therein, and there the Muirdris met him. Have you seen a pair of blacksmith's bellows open out and close, Alternate 'neath the hand of him that blows? So swelled it, and so shrunk the hideous sight, Hung all his visage sideways with affright. He fled, he gained the bank. "How seems my cheer, O Mowina?" "Ill," replied the charioteer, "but rest thee, sleep thy wildness will compose." He slept. Swift Mowina to Emania goes. Whom now for king, since Fergus's face awry But law demeans him of the sovereignty? Hush! And his sages and physicians wise In earnest council sit, and this advice: He knows not of his plight, to keep him so As he suspect not that he ought to know. For so the mind be straight and just towards, Wait on the judgment, right read, law regards No mere distortion of the outward frame As blemish, barring from the kingly name. And, know he all the baleful fact you tell, an inward wrench might warp the mind as well. Behoves it, therefore, all of idle tongue, jesters and women, and the witless young, be from his presence kept, and when at morn he takes his bath, behoves his bondmaid, Dom, muddy the water, test perchance he trace lost kingship's token on his imaged face. 3 years they kept him so, till on a day Dom with his face bath Ewa had made delay, and fretted Fergus, petulant and rash, a blow bestowed her of his horsewhip lash. Forth burst the woman's anger, "Thou a king! Thou sit in council! Thou adjudge a thing in court of law, thou who no kingship can, since all may see thou art a blemished man! Thou wry mouth!" Fergus thereon slew the maid, and, to Loch Ruaidh's brink in haste conveyed, went in at Furtay for a day and night. Beneath the waves he rested out of sight. But all the Ultonians on the bank who stood saw the loch boil and redden with the blood. When next at sunrise skies grew also red, he rose, and in his hand the Muirdris' head. Gone was the blemish on his goodly face, each trait symmetric had resumed its place, and they who saw him marked in all his mien a king's composure ample and serene. He smiled, he cast his trophy to the bank, cried, "I survive her, Ulla Terrian," and sank. End of The Spear of Keltar. This recording is in the public domain. Deirdre Dancing by Herbert Trench. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. Nay, O Is, wilt thou not dance, daughter of heaven, to-day free, at last free? For here no moody raindrop can reach thee, nor betrayer overpeer, and none the self-delightful measure hear that thy soul moves to. Quit of mortal ear, full luth she pleads, yet cannot him resist, and on the immossed lights begins to dance. Away, away, far floating like a mist, to fade into some leafy brilliance. Then, smiling to the inward melodist, over the printless turf, with slow advance Of showery footsteps, makes she infinite That crowded glen; but quick, possessed by strange rapture, wider than dreams her motions range, Till to a span the forest shrink and change, And in her eyes and glimmering arms she brings hither all promise, all the unlooked for boon of rainbowed life, all rare and speechless things that shine and swell under the brimming moon. Who shall pluck tympans? For what need of strings to waft her blood who is herself the tune, herself the warm and breathing melody? Art comes from the land of ever young. Oh, stay! For his heart, after thee rising away, falls dark and spirit faint back to the clay. Griefs, like the yellow leaves by winter curled, rise after her; long buried pangs arouse about that bosom the grey forests whirled, and tempests with her beauty might espouse. She rose with the green waters of the world, and the winds heaved with her their depth of boughs. Then vague again as blows the beanfield's odour, on the dark lap of air she chose to sink, as whinnying with plumes to the river bank the pigeons from the cliff came down to drink. Sudden, distraught, shading her eyes, she ceased, listening, like bride whom cunning fairy strain forth from the trumpet bruited spousal feast steals. But he beckoned soon, and quick with pain he ran, he craved at those white feet the least. pardon, nor till he felt her hand again Descend, flake soft, durst spy that she was weeping, Or kneel with burning murmurs to atone For sleep she wept. Long fasting had they gone, And ridden from the breaking of the dawn. End of Deirdre dancing. This recording is in the public domain. The Noble Lay of Eilean by Stopford A. Brooke. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. After an Irish tale from the Book of Leinster. Prince Beal of Ulster rode out in the Mon To meet his love at the ford, And he loved her better than lands or life, And dearer than his sword. And she was Eilean, fair as the sea, The Prince of Leinster's daughter, And she longed for him more than a wounded man Who sees death, longs for water. They sent a message each to each, "Oh, meet me near or far," And the ford divided the kingdoms two, And the kings were Bolix at war. And the prince came first to the water's pass, And oh, he thought no ill, When he saw with pain a great grey man Come striding o'er the hill. His cloak was the ragged thunder cloud, And his cap the whirling snow, And his eyes were the lightning in the storm, And his horn he 'gan to blow. What news, thou great grey man? I fear 'tis ill with me. O Eilean is dead, and her lips are cold, And he died for loving thee. And he looked and saw no more the man, But a trail of driving rain. Woe, woe, he cried, and took his sword, And drave his heart in twain. And out of his blood burst forth a spring, And a yew tree out of his breast, And it grew so deep, and it grew so high, The doves came near to rest. But Eilean was coming to keep her tryst, The hour her lover fell, And she rode as fast as the western wind Across the heathery hill. Behind her flew her loosened hair, Her happy heart did beat, When she was 'ware of a cloud of storm Came driving down the street. And out of it stepped a great grey man, And his cap was peaked with snow, The fire of death was in his eyes, And he 'gan his horn to blow. What news, thou great grey man? And is it ill to me? Oh, Beal the prince is dead at the ford, And he died for loving thee. Pale, pale she grew, and two large tears Dropped down like heavy rain, And she fell to earth with a woeful cry, For she broke her heart in twain. And out of her tears two fountains rose, That watered all the ground, And out of her heart an apple tree grew, That heard the water's sound. Oh, woe were the kings, and woe were the queens, And woe were the people all, And the poets sang their love and their death, In cottage and in hall. And the men of Ulster a tablet made From the wood of Baile's tree, And the men of Leinster did the like Of Eilean's apple tree. And on the one the poets wrote The lover tales of Leinster, And on the other all the deeds That lover wrought in Ulster. Now when 100 years had gone, The king of all the land kept feast at Tara, And he bade his poets sing a strand. They sang the sweet unhappy tale, The noble Eilean's lay. "Go bring the tablets," cried the king, "For I have wept to day." But when he held in his right hand The wood of Baile's tree, And in his left the tablet smooth From Eilean's apple tree, The lovers in the wood who kept Love longing ever true, Knew one another, and at once From the hands of the king they flew. As ivy to the oak they clung, Their kiss no man could sever. Oh, joy for lovers parted long, To meet at last for ever! End of the Noble Lay of Eilean. This recording is in the public domain. The Love Talker by Ethna Carberry. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. I met the Love Talker one eve in the glen. He was handsomer than any of our handsome young men. His eyes were blacker than the sloe, his voice sweeter far than the crooning of old Kevin's pipes beyond in cool Nagar. I was bound for the milking, with a heart fair and free. My grief, that bitter hour, drained the life from me. I thought him human lover, though his lips on mine were cold, and the breath of death blew keen on me within his hold. I know not what way he came, no shadow fell behind, but all the sighing rushes swayed beneath a fairy wind. The thrush ceased its singing, a mist crept about. We two clung together, with the world shut out. Beyond the ghostly mist I could hear my cattle low, the little cow from Ballina, clean as driven slow, the dun cow from Kerry, the roan from Inisheer. Oh, pitiful their calling, and his whispers in my ear. His eyes were a fire, his words were a snare. I cried my mother's name, but no help was there. I made the blessed sign, then he gave a dreary moan. A wisp of cloud went floating by, and I stood alone. Running ever through my head is an old time rune. Who meets the love talker must weave her shroud soon. My mother's face is furrowed with the salt tears that fall, but the kind eyes of my father are the saddest sight of all. I have spun the fleecy lint, and now my wheel is still. The linen length is woven for my shroud fine and chill. I shall stretch me on the bed where a happy maid I lay, pray for the soul of Mayor Og at dawning of the day. End of the Love Talker. This recording is in the public domain. To the Lean She by Thomas Boyd. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. Where is thy lovely, perilous abode? In what strange phantom land Glimmer the fairy turrets whereto rode the ill-starred poet band? Say, in the Isle of Youth hast thou thy home? The sweetest singer there, stealing on winged steed across the foam, athrough the moonlit air, and by the gloomy peaks of Errigal, haunted by storm and cloud, wing past to thy lover there, let fall his singing robe and shroud? Or where the mists of bluebell float beneath the red stems of the pine, and sunbeams strike through shadow, dost thou breathe the word that makes him thine? Or is thy palace entered through some cliff when radiant tides are full, and around thy lover's wandering, starlit skiff coil in luxurious lull? And would he, entering on the brimming flood, see caverns vast in height, and diamond columns, crowned with leaf and bud, glow in long lanes of light, and there the pearl of that great glittering shell, trembling, behold thee lone, now weaving in slow dance an awful spell, now still upon thy throne? Thy beauty! Ah, the eyes that pierce him through, then melt as in a dream, the voice that sings the mysteries of the blue, and all that be and seem, thy lovely motions answering to the rhyme that ancient nature sings, that keeps the stars in cadence for all time, and echoes through all things. Whether he sees thee thus, or in his dreams, thy light makes all lights dim, an aching solitude from henceforth seems the world of men to him. Thy luring song, above the sensuous roar, he follows with delight, shutting behind him life's last gloomy door, and fares into the night. End of To the Lean and She. This recording is in the public domain. The King's Son by Thomas Boyd. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. Who rideth through the driving rain at such a headlong speed? Naked and pale he rides, amain upon a naked steed. Nor hollow nor height his going bars, his wet steed shines like silk. His head is golden to the stars, and his limbs are white as milk. But lo, he dwindles as the light that lifts from a black mere, and, as the fair youth wanes from sight, the steed grows mightier. What wizard by yon holy tree mutters unto the sky, where Maccas, flame-tongued horses flee on hoofs of thunder by? Ah, 'tis not holy so to ban the youth of kingly seed. Ah, woe the wasting of a man who changes to a steed. Nightly upon the plain of kings, when Macha's day is nigh, he gallops, and the dark wind brings his lonely human cry. End of The King's Son. This recording is in the public domain. Little Sister by Thomas Boyd. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. Little sister, whom the Fae hides away within his dune, deep below yon tufted fern, oh, list and learn my magic tune. Long ago, when snared like thee by the Sidhe, my harp and I o'er them wove the slumber spell, warbling well its lullaby, till with dreamy smiles they sank rank on rank before the strain. Then I rose from out the wrath, and found my path to earth again. Little sister, to my woe, hid below among the Sidhe, list and learn my magic tune, that it full soon may succour thee. End of Little Sister. This recording is in the public domain.
The Fairy Thorn, an Ulster Ballad, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org. Get up, our Anna dear, from the weary spinning wheel, for your father's on the hill and your mother is asleep. Come up above the crags and we'll dance a Highland reel around the fairy thorn on the steep. At Anna Grace's door 'twas thus the maidens cried, 3 merry maidens fair in kirtles of the green, and Anna laid the rock and the weary wheel aside, the fairest of the 4, I ween. There glancing through the glimmer of the quiet eve, away in milky wavings of neck and ankle bare, the heavy sliding stream in its sleepy song they leave, and the crags and the ghostly air. And linking hand in hand, and singing as they go, the maids along the hillside have ta'en their fearless way, till they come to where the rowan trees in lonely beauty grow, beside the fairy hawthorn grey. The hawthorn stands between the ashes tall and slim, like matron with her twin granddaughters at her knee. The rowan berries cluster o'er her low head grey and dim, in ruddy kisses sweet to see. The merry maidens 4 have ranged them in a row, between each lovely couple a stately rowan stem, and away in mazes wavy like skimming birds they go, oh, never carolled bird like them. But solemn is the silence of the silvery haze that drinks away their voices in echoless repose, and dreamily the evening has stilled the haunted braes, and dreamier the gloaming grows. And sinking one by one, like lark notes from the sky, when the falcon shadow saileth across the open shaw, are hushed the maidens' voices, as cowering down they lie in the flutter of their sudden awe. For from the air above, and the grassy ground beneath, and from the mountain ashes and the old white thorn between, a power of faint enchantment doth through their beings breathe, and they sink down together on the green. They sink together silent, and stealing side by side, they fling their lovely arms o'er their drooping necks so fair, then vainly strive again their naked arms to hide, for their shrinking necks again are bare. Thus clasped and prostrate all, with their heads together bowed, soft o'er their bosoms beating, the only human sound, they hear the silky footsteps of the silent fairy crowd, like a river in the air gliding round. No scream can any raise, no prayer can any say, but wild, wild the terror of the speechless three, for they feel fair Anna Grace drawn silently away, by whom they dare not look to see. They feel their tresses twine with her parting locks of gold, and the curls elastic falling as her head withdraws. They feel her sliding arms from their tranced arms unfold, but they may not look to see the cause. For heavy on their senses the faint enchantment lies, through all that night of anguish and perilous amaze, and neither fear nor wonder can ope their quivering eyes, or their limbs from the cold ground raise, till out of night the earth has rolled her dewy side, with every haunted mountain and streamy vale below, when as the mist dissolves in the yellow morning tide, the maiden's trance dissolveth so. Then fly the ghastly three, as swiftly as they may, and tell their tale of sorrow to anxious friends in vain. They pined away and died within the year and day, and ne'er was Anna Grace seen again. End of The Fairy Thorn. This recording is in the public domain.
On All Souls' Night, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. On All Souls' Night, by Dora Sigerson. O mother, mother, I swept the hearth, I set his chair and whiteboard spread, I prayed for his coming to our kind lady when death's sad doors would let out the dead. A strange wind rattled the window pane, and down the lane a dog howled on. I called his name, and the candle flame burned dim, pressed a hand the door latch upon. Deelish, deelish, my woe forever that I could not sever coward flesh from fear. I called his name, and the pale ghost came, but I was afraid to meet my dear. O mother, mother, in tears I checked the sad hours past of the year that's o'er, till by God's grace I might see his face and hear the sound of his voice once more. The chair I set from the cold and wet he took when he came from unknown skies, of the land of the dead. On my bent brown head I felt the reproach of his saddened eyes. I closed my lids on my heart's desire, crouched by the fire, my voice was dumb. At my clean-swept hearth he had no mirth, and at my table he broke no crumb. Deelish, deelish, my woe forever that I could not sever coward flesh from fear. His chair put aside when the young cock cried, and I was afraid to meet my dear. End of On All Souls' Night. This recording is in the public domain.
The Ship from Tir na Nog, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Anita Sloma Martinez. We two were alone by the sea, I and the man I loved with me. Our eyes were glad and our hearts beat high as we sat by the sea, my love and I, till we looked afar and saw a ship. Then white, white grew his ruddy lip, and strange, strange grew his eyes that saw into the heart of some deep awe. His hand that held this hand of mine never a token gave nor sign, but lay as a babe's that is just dead, and I sat still and wondered. Nearer and nearer the white ship drew. Who was her captain? Whence her crew? Her crew were men and women bright, with fair eyes full of unknown light. From far off Tirnanog they came, where they had heard my true love's name, the name the birds and waves had sung of one who must bide forever young. Strong white arms let down the boat, song rose up from many a throat, glad they were who soon had won a lovely new companion. They lowered the boat and they entered her, and rowed to meet their passenger, rowed to the tune of a music strange that told of joy at the heart of change. I heard her keel on the pebbles gride, and she waited there till the turn of the tide, while they kept singing, singing clear, a song that was passing sweet to hear, a song that bound me in a chain away from any thought of pain. They paused at last in their sweet singing, and I saw their hands were beckoning. In a rhythm as sweet as the stilled songs that passed to the air from their silent tongues, he rose and kissed me on the face, and left me sitting in my place. Quiet, quiet, life and limb, I who was not called like him. Into the boat he entered grave, and the tide turned, and she rode the wave. And I saw him sitting at the prow, with a rose light about his brow. The boat drew nigh the ship again, with all its lovely women and men. I saw him enter the ship and stand, his hand held in the captain's hand. The captain wonderful to see, with eyes a change in depth and blee, a change, for ever and aye, blue and purple and black and grey, and hair like the weed that finds a home in the heart of a trail of white sea foam. I wist he was no mortal man, but he whose name is Mannanan. They sailed away, out of the day, into the day. End of The Ship from Tirnanog. This recording is in the public domain.
The Fairies' Passage, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. The Fairies' Passage by James Clarence Mangan. Tap, 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 rap. Get up, Gaffer Ferryman. Eh? Who is there? The clock strikes 3. Get up, do, Gaffer. You are the very man we have been longing to see. The ferryman rises, growling and grumbling, and goes fumbling and stumbling and tumbling over the weirs on his way to the door. But he sees no more than he saw before, till a voice is heard. "Oh, ferryman dear, here we are waiting, all of us here. We are a wee colony, we, some 200 in all, or 3. Ferry us over the River Lee, ere dawn of day, and we will pay the most we may in our own wee way." "Who are you? Whence came you? What place are you going to?" "Oh, we have dwelled over long in this land. The people get cross and are growing so knowing too. Nothing at all but they now understand. We are daily vanishing under the thunder of some huge engine or iron wonder. That iron, it has entered our souls." "Your souls? Oh, goals! You queer little drolls! Do you mean—" "Good Gaffer, do aid us with speed, for our time, like our stature, is short indeed. And a very long way we have to go, 8 or 10,000 miles or so, hither and thither, and to and fro, with our pots and pans and little gold cans, but our light caravans run swifter than man's." "Well, you may come," said the ferryman affably. "Patrick, turn out, and get ready the barge." Then again to the little folk. "Though you seem laughably small, I don't mind if your coppers be large." Oh dear, what a rushing, what pushing, what crushing! The watermen making vain efforts at hushing the hubbub the while, there followed these words. What clapping of boards, what strapping of cords, what stowing away of children and wives, and platters and mugs and spoons and knives, till all had safely got into the boat, and the ferryman, clad in his tip-top coat, and his wee little fairies were safely afloat. Then ding, 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 and cling, 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 how the coppers did ring in the tin pitcherling. Off then went the boat, at first very pleasantly, smoothly and so forth, but after a while it swayed and it swagged this and that way, and presently chest after chest and pile after pile of the little folks' goods began tossing and rolling and pitching like fun beyond fairy controlling. Oh, Mab, if the hubbub were great before, it was now some 2 or 3 million times more. Crash went the wee crocks and the clocks, and the locks of each little wee box were stove in by hard knocks. And then there were oaths and prayers and cries, "Take care! See there! Oh dear, my eyes! I am killed! I am drowned!" with groans and sighs, till to land they drew. Yee-hoo! Pull to! Till a rope through and through, and all's right anew. Now jump upon shore, ye queer little oddities. Eh, what is this? Where are they at all? Where are they, and where are their tiny commodities? Well, as I live! He looks blank as a wall, poor ferryman. Round him and round him he gazes, but only gets deeplier lost in the mazes of utter bewilderment. All are gone, and he stands alone, like a statue of stone, in a doldrum of wonder. He turns to steer, and a tinkling laugh salutes his ear, with other odd sounds. Ha 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 ha! Follol, sit zizzle, quee pa pa, fizzy giggity, pshee sha sha. Oh, ye thieves, ye rascally thieves! The good man cries. He turns to his pitcher, and there, alas, to his horror perceives that the little folks' mode of making him richer has been to pay him with withered leaves. End of The Fairy's Passage. This recording is in the public domain. The Fairy Fiddler, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. The Fairy Fiddler by Nora Hopper. 'Tis I go fiddling, fiddling, by weedy ways forlorn, I make the blackbird's music, ere in his breast 'tis born. The sleeping larks I waken, 'twixt the midnight and the morn. No man alive has seen me, but women hear me play, sometimes at the door or window, fiddling the souls away, the child's soul and the colline's, out of the covering clay. None of my fairy kinsmen make music with me now, alone the rass I wander, or ride the whitethorn bough, but the wild swans they know me, and the horse that draws the plough. End of The Fairy Fiddler. This recording is in the public domain. The Fairies, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. The Fairies, by William Allingham. Up the airy mountain, down the rushy glen, we daren't go a-hunting, for fear of little men. Wee folk, good folk, trooping all together, green jacket, red cap, and white owl's feather. Down along the rocky shore some make their home, they live on crispy pancakes of yellow tide foam. Some in the reeds of the black mountain lake, with frogs for their watchdogs, all night awake. High on the hilltop the old king sits, he is now so old and grey, he's nigh lost his wits. With a bridge of white mist Columkill he crosses, on his stately journeys from Slieve to Rosses, or going up with music on cold starry nights, to sup with the queen of the gay northern lights. They stole little Bridget for 7 years long. When she came down again, her friends were all gone, They took her lightly back, between the night and morrow. They thought that she was fast asleep, but she was dead with sorrow. They have kept her ever since, deep within the lake, on a bed of flag leaves, watching till she wake. By the craggy hillside, through the mosses bare, they have planted thorn trees for pleasure here and there. Is any man so daring as dig them up in spite, he shall find their sharpest thorns in his bed at night. Up the airy mountain, down the rushy glen, we daren't go a-hunting, for fear of little men. Wee folk, good folk, trooping all together, green jacket, red cap, and white owl's feather. End of The Fairies. This recording is in the public domain. Hi Brazil, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. Hi Brazil, by Gerald Griffin. On the ocean that hollows the rocks where you dwell, a shadowy land has appeared, as they tell. Men thought it a region of sunshine and rest, and they called it High Brazil, the Isle of the Blest. From year unto year on the ocean's blue rim, the beautiful spectre showed lovely and dim. The golden clouds curtained the deep where it lay, and it looked like an Eden away, far away. A peasant who heard of the wonderful tale, in the breeze of the Orient loosened his sail. From Ara the holy he turned to the west, for though Ara was holy, High Brazil was blessed. He heard not the voices that called from the shore, he heard not the rising wind's menacing roar. Home, kindred, and safety he left on that day, and he sped to High Brazil, away, far away. Morn rose on the deep, and that shadowy isle over the faint rim of distance reflected its smile. Noon burned on the wave, and that shadowy shore seemed lovely distant and faint as before. Lone evening came down on the wanderer's track, and to Ara again he looked timidly back. Oh, far on the verge of the ocean it lay, yet the Isle of the Blest was away, far away. Rash dreamer, return, O ye winds of the main, bear him back to his own peaceful Ara again. Rash fool, for a vision of fanciful bliss to barter thy calm life of labour and peace. The warning of reason was spoken in vain. He never revisited Ara again. Night fell on the deep amidst tempest and spray, and he died on the waters, away, far away. End of High Brazil. This recording is in the public domain. The Heather Glen, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. The Heather Glen by George Sigerson. There blooms the bonny flower upon the heather glen, though bright in sun, in shower, 'tis just as bright again. I never can pass by it, I never dare go nigh it, my heart it won't be quiet, up the heather glen. Sing, oh, the blooming heather, oh, the heather glen, where fairest fairies gather to lure in mortal men. I never can pass by it, I never dare go nigh it, my heart it won't be quiet, up the heather glen. There sings a bonny linnet up the heather glen, the voice has magic in it, too sweet for mortal men. It brings joy doon before us, with winsome mellow chorus, but flies far, too far over us, up the heather glen. Sing, oh, the blooming heather, oh, the heather glen, where fairest fairies gather to lure in mortal man. I never can pass by it, I never dare go nigh it. My heart it won't be quiet up the heather glen. Oh, might I pull the flower that's blooming in that glen! Nay, sorrows that could lower would make me sad again. And might I catch that linnet, my heart, my hope are in it. Oh, heaven itself I'd win it up the heather glen. Sing, oh, the blooming heather, oh, the heather glen, where fairest fairies gather to lure in mortal man. I never can pass by it, I never dare go nigh it. My heart it won't be quiet up the heather glen. End of the Heather Glen. This recording is in the public domain. The Wind Among the Reeds, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. The Wind Among the Reeds, by Nora Hopper. Mavrone, Mavrone, the wind among the reeds, it calls and cries, and will not let me be, and all its cry is of forgotten deeds, when men were loved of all the Dean she. O she that have forgotten how to love, and she that have forgotten how to hate, asleep 'neath quickened boughs that no winds move, come back to us ere yet it be too late. Pipe to us once again, lest we forget what piping means, till all the silver spears be wild with gusty music, such as met Carolan once amid the dusty years. Dance in your rings again, the yellow weeds you used to ride so far mount as of old. Play hide and seek with wind among the reeds, and pay your scores again with fairy gold. End of The Wind Among the Reeds. This recording is in the public domain.
The Changeling, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org. He stood alone outside the fairy hill beneath the horned moon, and heard below the grasses, gay and shrill, an elfin tune. There came to him a memory faint and far of things he once had known, a square of window and a twinkling star, a warm hearthstone. He set soft feet upon the turfy path, crushing the scented thyme. He turned his back upon the fairy wrath, the hidden chime. He passed the swaying foxgloves by the wall, and left the stream behind. A startled rabbit through the brackens tall fled like the wind. Drawn by a baby thought of mother eyes, he pattered down the lane to the low house, and standing tiptoe wise, peeped through the pane. A woman hushed a wakeful child to sleep beside a dying fire. "Hush-o, hush-o," she crooned, "and do not weep, O heart's desire. Lie still and sleep, nor fear the fairy's wile, no harm shall come to thee." Outside, her baby saw the changeling smile upon her knee. With dimpled hand he beat upon the glass, the woman drew the blind. "Hush-o, my child, dost hear the fairies pass upon the wind?" End of The Changeling. This recording is in the public domain. The Fairy Lover, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org. It was by yonder thorn I saw the fairy host. O low night wind, O wind of the west, my love rode by. There was gold upon his brow, and since that hour I can neither eat nor rest. I dare not pray, lest I should forget his face. O black north wind, blowing cold beneath the sky, his face and his eyes shine between me and the sun. If I may not be with him, I would rather die. They tell me I am cursed, and I will lose my soul, O red wind shrieking o'er the thorn-grown dune. But he is my love, and I go to him tonight. He will ride when the thorn glistens white beneath the moon. He will call my name and lift me to his breast. Blow soft, O wind, 'neath the stars of the south. I care not for heaven, and I fear not hell, if I have but the kisses of his proud red mouth. End of The Fairy Lover. This recording is in the public domain.
The Leprechaun or Fairy Shoemaker, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org, recording by Anita Sloma Martinez. Little cowboy, what have you heard up on the lonely Rath's green mound? Only the plaintive yellow bird sighing in sultry fields around. Cherry, 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 cherry. Only the grasshopper and the bee? Tip-tap, rip-rap, tick-a-tack-too. Scarlet leather sewn together, this will make a shoe. Left, right, pull it tight, summer days are warm. Underground in winter, laughing at the storm. Lay your ear close to the hill. Do you not catch the tiny clamor? Busy click of an elfin hammer. Voice of the leprechaun singing shrill, as he merrily plies his trade? He's a span and a quarter in height. Get him in sight, hold him tight, and you're a made man. You watch your cattle the summer day, sup on potatoes, sleep in the hay. How would you like to roll in your carriage, look for a duchess's daughter in marriage, seize the shoemaker, then you may. Big boots a-hunting, sandals in the hall, white for a wedding feast, pink for a ball. This way, that way, so we make a shoe, getting rich every stitch, tick-tack-too. 99 treasure crocks this keen miser fairy hath, hid in mountains, woods, and rocks, ruin and Rantar, cave and rath, and where the cormorants build. From time of old, guarded by him, each of them filled, full to the brim, with gold. I caught him at work one day myself, in the castle ditch where foxglove grows, a wrinkled, wizened, and bearded elf, spectacles stuck on his pointed nose, silver buckles to his hose, leather apron, shoe in his lap. Rip, rap, tip, tap, tick, tack, too, a grasshopper on my cap, away the moth flew. Buskins for a fairy prince, brogues for his son. Pay me well, when the job is done. The rogue was mine beyond a doubt. I stared at him, he stared at me. Servant, sir, humph, says he, and pulled a snuff-box out. He took a long pinch, looked better pleased, the queer little leprechaun, offered the box with a whimsical grace. Poof! He flung the dust in my face, and while I sneezed, was gone. End of The Leprechaun or Fairy Shoemaker. This recording is in the public domain.
Fairy Song from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. Fairy Song by Eleanor Sweetman. When daisies close and poppies nod, and meadow grass to earth is laid, and fairies dance on moonlit sod, or quaff of dewdrops in the shade, come, gentle dreams, in velvet shod, and foot it round each sleeping maid. Come softly hither, dove-winged flock, and on their pillows make your nest, and light as down from puff-ball clock, let kisses on their eyes be pressed. Then sit upon the couch and rock each tender little heart to rest. End of Fairy Song. This recording is in the public domain. The Others, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. The Others by James O'Sullivan. From our hidden places by a secret path we come in the moonlight to the side of the green rath, where the night through we take our pleasure, dancing to such a measure as earth never knew. To song and dance and lilt without a name, so sweetly breathed 'twould put a bird to shame. And many a young maiden is there of mortal birth, her young eyes laden with dreams of earth. And many a youth entranced moves slowly in the wildered round, his brave lost feet enchanted with the rhythm of fairy sound. Music so forest wild and piercing sweet would bring silence on blackbirds singing their best in the ear of spring. And now they pause in their dancing and look with troubled eyes, earth's straying children with sudden memory wise. They pause, and their eyes in the moonlight, with fairy wisdom cold, grow dim, and the thought goes fluttering in the hearts no longer old. And then the dream forsakes them, and sighing they turn anew as the whispering music takes them to the dance of the elfin crew. Oh, many a thrush and a blackbird would fall to the dewy ground and pine away in silence for envy of such a sound. So the night through, in our sad pleasure, we dance to many a measure that earth never knew. End of The Others. This recording is in the public domain.
What is Love? From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Chad Horner from Ballyclare in County Antrim, Northern Ireland, situated in the north-east of the island of Ireland. What is love? From the early Irish. A love all commanding, always standing, through a year is my love. A grief darkly hiding, starkly biding, without let or remove. Of strength a sharp straining, past sustaining, wheresoever I rove. A force still extending without ending, before and around and above. Of heaven 'tis the brightest amazement, the blackest abasement of hell, a struggle for breath with the sceptre, in nectar a choking to death. 'Tis a race with heaven's lightning and thunder, then champion feats under moil's water. 'Tis pursuing the cuckoo, the wooing of echo, the rock's airy daughter, till my red lips turn ashen, my light limbs grow laden, my heart loses motion, in death my eyes deaden. So is my love and my passion, so is my ceaseless devotion, to her to whom I gave them, to her who will not have them. End of What is Love? This recording is in the public domain. Recording by Chad Horner from Ballyclare in County Antrim, Northern Ireland, situated in the north-east of the island of Ireland.
The Song of Creed, Daughter of Gwere, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. The Song of Creed, Daughter of Gwere, translated from a 10th century poem. In the battle of Ednir, Creed, the daughter of King Gwere of Ednir, beheld Dinatach of the High Figenti, who had come to the help of Gwere with 17 wounds upon his breast. Then she fell in love with him. He died and was buried in the cemetery of Colman's church. These are the arrows that murder sleep, at every hour in the night's black deep. Pangs of love through the long day ache, all for the dead Dinatach's sake. Great love of a hero from Roini's plain has pierced me through with immortal pain, blasted my beauty and left me to blanch, a riven bloom on a restless branch. Never was song like Dinatach's speech, but holy strains that to heaven's gate reach. A front aflame without boast or pride, yet a firm, fond mate for a fair maid's side. A growing girl, I was timid of tongue, and never twisted with gallants young. But since I have won into passionate age, fierce love longings my heart engage. I have every bounty that life could hold, with Gwere, arch monarch of Ednir cold, but fallen away from my haughty folk, in Ilrhir's field my heart lies broke. There is chanting in glorious Ednir's meadow, under St. Colman's church's shadow, a hero flame sinks into the tomb. Dinatach, alas, my love and my doom! Chaste Christ, that now at my life's last breath I should tryst with sorrow and mate with death. At every hour of the night's black deep, these are the arrows that murder sleep. End of The Song of Creed, Daughter of Gwere. This recording is in the public domain.
She by Eleanor Hall, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org. The white bloom of the blackthorn she, the small sweet raspberry blossom she, more fair the shy, rare glance of her eye than the wealth of the world to me. My heart's pulse, my secret she, the flower of the fragrant apple she, a summer glow o'er the winter's snow, twixt Christmas and Easter she. End of She. This recording is in the public domain.
Creed's Lament for Cale, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. Creed's Lament for Cale, from the Colloquy of the Ancients. Over thy chief, thy rushing chief, Loch Thacon, loud the haven is roaring. All too late her deadly hate for Crimtha's son yonder deep is deploring. Small comfort, I trow, to Creed is her wail, slender solace now, O my Cale. Och hone, och Wirasru, can she who slew bid thee back, spirit soaring? Hark! The thrush from our drum queen lifts his keen through the choir of the thrushes. With his mate, his screaming mate over the green, see, the red weasel rushes. Crushed on the crag lies Glen Sealan's doe. Over her yon stag tells his woe. Thus, Cale, och, och hone, for thee my soul's sorrow gushes. O the thrush, the morning thrush, mating shall sing when the furze bloom is yellow. O the stag, the grieving stag in the spring, with a fresh doe shall fallow. But love for me, 'neath the ever-moving mound of the scowling sea lieth drowned, while och, all agone, the sea-fowl moan, and the sea-beasts bellow. End of Creed's Lament for Cale. This recording is in the public domain. The Lament of Fand at Parting from Cuchulainn, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. The Lament of Fand at Parting from Cuchulainn, from the sickbed of Cuchulainn. 'Tis I, who must renounce my love and go, lest conflict grow between thyself and me. Yet had I shared with thee Cuchulainn's love, my joy had been above all jealousy. Nay, happier were it here for me to dwell, submitting well to thy supremacy, than thus depart unto my royal seat of Ard Abrat, strange though the thought to thee. The man is thine, Emmer, in this love strife. O noble wife, from me he breaks away. Yet none the less I hunger for the bliss I now shall miss, and miss, and miss alway. Proud prince on prince has supplicated me in secrecy his passion's joy to share. With none of these have I a love tryst kept, but still have stepped stern-minded past the snare. Joyless is she who gives a heart's whole meed to him who no full heed thereto returns. Better for her indeed in death to pass, than not be yearned for as for him she yearns. With 50 women dost thou hither fare, thou of the lustrous hair and lofty will, for fan's overthrow? With all their tongues of scorn, is't well thy rival love forlorn to kill? 3 times of 50 women such as these attend my ease, wise, marriageable fair. They wait me now within my royal brow, with pity's dew to calm my cruel care. End of The Lament of Fand at Parting from Cuchulainn. This recording is in the public domain.
Were You on the Mountain? From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Were You on the Mountain by Douglas Hyde. Oh, were you on the mountain, or saw you my love? Or saw you my own one, my queen and my dove? Or saw you the maiden, with the step firm and free? And say, is she pining in sorrow like me? I was upon the mountain, and I saw there your love. I saw there your own one, your queen and your dove. I saw there the maiden, with the step firm and free, and she was not pining in sorrow like thee. End of Were You on the Mountain? This recording is in the public domain. Recording by Stefan D'Souza.
Pulse of My Heart, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Pulse of My Heart. As the sweet blackberry's modest bloom, fair flowering, greets the sight, or strawberries in their rich perfume, fragrance and bloom unite, so this fair plant of tender youth in outward charms can vie, and from within the soul of truth, soft beaming, fills her eye. Pulse of my heart, dear source of care, stolen sighs and love-breathed vows, sweeter than when through scented air gay bloom the apple boughs. With thee no day can winter seem, nor frost nor blast can chill. Thou the soft breeze, the cheering beam that keeps its summer still. Charlotte Brooke. End of Pulse of My Heart. This recording is in the public domain.
Two Songs from the Irish, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Two Songs from the Irish, 1. The stars stand up in the air. The sun and the moon are gone. The strand of its waters is bare, and her sway is swept from the swan. The cuckoo was calling all day, hid in the branches above. How my Storeen is fled far away, 'tis my grief that I gave her my love. 3 things through love I see, sorrow and sin and death, and my mind reminding me that these doom I breathe with my breath. But sweeter than violin or lute is my love, and she left me behind. I wish that all music were mute, and I to all beauty were blind. She's more shapely than swan by the strand. She's more radiant than grass after dew. She's more fair than the stars where they stand. 'Tis my grief that her ever I knew. End of Two Songs from the Irish, 1. This recording is in the public domain. Two Songs from the Irish, 2. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Two songs from the Irish, 2. 'Tis a pity I'm not in England, or with one from Erin thither bound, or out in the midst of the ocean, where the thousands of ships are drowned. From wave to wave of the ocean, to be guided on with the wind and the rain, and O King, that thou mightst guide me back to my love again. End of Two Songs from the Irish, 2. This recording is in the public domain.
Pearl of the White Breast, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. Pearl of the White Breast, by George Petrie, from the Irish. There's a Colin fair as May, for a year and for a day, I've sought by every way her heart to gain. There's no art of tongue or eye fond youth with maidens try, but I've tried with ceaseless sigh, yet tried in vain. If to France or far off Spain she'd cross the watery main, to see her face again the sea I'd brave. And if 'tis heaven's decree that mine she may not be, may the Son of Mary me in mercy save. O thou blooming milk-white dove, to whom I've given true love, do not ever thus reprove my constancy. There are maidens would be mine, with wealth in hand and kine, if my heart would but incline to turn from thee. But the kiss with welcome blent, and the touch of thy dear hand, are all that I demand, wouldst thou not spurn. For if not mine, dear girl, O snowy breasted pearl, may I never from the fair with life return. End of Pearl of the White Breast. This recording is in the public domain. The Outlaw of Loch Lean, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. The Outlaw of Loch Lean, by Jeremiah Joseph Callanan, from the Irish. O many a day have I made good ale in the glen, that came not of stream or malt, like the brewing of men. My bed was the ground, my roof the greenwood above, and the wealth that I sought one far kind glance from my love. Alas, on that night when the horses I drove from the field, that I was not near from terror my angel to shield. She stretched forth her arms, her mantle she flung to the wind, and swam over Loch Lean her outlawed lover to find. Oh, would that a freezing, sleet-winged tempest did sweep, and I and my love were alone, far off on the deep! I'd ask not a ship or a bark or pinnace to save, with her hand round my waist I'd fear not the wind or the wave. 'Tis down by the lake, where the wild tree fringes its sides, the maid of my heart, my fair one of heaven resides. I think as at eve she wanders its mazes along, the birds go to sleep by the sweet wild twist of her song. End of The Outlaw of Loch Lean. This recording is in the public domain. Sean Du Dealish, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. Sean Du Dealish, by Sir Samuel Ferguson, from the Irish. Put your head, darling, 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 your darling black head my heart above. O mouth of honey, with the thyme for fragrance, who with heart in breast could deny you love? O many and many a young girl for me is pining, letting her locks of gold to the cold wind free, for me, the foremost of our gay young fellows, but I'd leave 100, pure love, for thee. Then put your head, darling, 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 your darling black head my heart above. O mouth of honey, with the thyme for fragrance, who with heart in breast could deny you love? End of Sean Du Dealish. This recording is in the public domain.
The Flower of Nut Brown Maids by Eleanor Hull. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. From the 17th century Irish. If thou wilt come with me to the county of Leitrim, flower of nut brown maids, honey of bees, and mead to the beaker's brim, I'll offer thee, nut brown maid, where the pure air floats o'er the swinging boats of the strand, under the white topped wave that laves the edge of the sand. There without fear we will wander together, hand clasped in hand, flower of nut brown maids. My heart never gave you liking or love, said the flower of nut brown maids. Though sweet are your words, there's black famine above, said the flower of nut brown maids. With gentle words feed me, when need and grim hunger come by. Better be free, than with thee to the woodlands to fly. What gain to us both if together we famish and die? Wept the flower of nut brown maids. I saw her coming towards me o'er the face of the mountain, like a star glimmering through the mist. In the field of furze, where the slow cows were browsing, in pledge of our love we kissed. In the bend of the hedge where the tall trees play with the sun, I wrote her the lines that should bind us forever in one. Had you a right to deny me the dues I had won, O flower of nut brown maids? My grief and my torment that thou art not here with me now, flower of nut brown maids. Alone, all alone, it matters not where or how, O flower of nut brown maids, on a slender bed, O little black head, strained close to thee, or a heap of hay until break of day, it were one to me, laughing in gladness and glee together, with none to see, my flower of nut brown maids. End of the Nut Brown Maids. This recording is in the public domain. Pastine Finn by Sir Samuel Ferguson. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. From the Irish. O my fair Pastine is my heart's delight, her gay heart loves in her blue eye bright, like the apple blossom her bosom white, and her neck like the swan's on a March morn bright. Chorus. Then Oro, come with me, come with me, come with me, Oro, come with me, brown girl sweet, and oh, I would go through snow and sleet if you would come with me, brown girl sweet. Love of my heart, my fair Pastine, her cheeks are red as the rose's sheen, but my lips have tasted no more, I ween, than the glass I drink to the health of my queen. Were I in the town where's mirth and glee, or twixt two barrels of barley bree, with my fair Pastine upon my knee, 'tis I would drink to her pleasantly. 9 nights I lay in longing and pain, betwixt two bushes, beneath the rain, thinking to see you, love, again, but whistle and call were all in vain. I'll leave my people, both friend and foe, from all the girls in the world I'll go, but from you, sweetheart, oh, never, oh, no, till I die in the coffin, stretched cold and low. End of Pastine Finn. This recording is in the public domain. She Is My Love by Douglas Hyde. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. From the Irish. She is my love beyond all thought, though she has wrought my deepest dole, yet dearer for the cruel pain than one who fain would make me whole. She is my glittering gem of gems, who yet contemns my fortune bright, whose cheek but glows with redder scorn, since mine has worn a stricken white. She is my sun and moon and star, who yet so far and cold doth keep, she would not even o'er my bier one tender tear of pity weep. Into my heart unsought she came, a wasting flame, a haunting care, into my heart of hearts, ah, why? And left to sigh for ever there. End of She Is My Love. This recording is in the public domain. Happy 'tis thou blind for thee, by Douglas Hyde. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. Happy 'tis thou blind for thee, that thou seest not our star. Couldst thou see but as we see her, thou wouldst be but as we are. Once I pitied sightless men, I was then unscathed by sight. Now I envy those who see not, they can be not hurt by light. Woe who once has seen her please, and then sees her not each hour. Woe for him her love mesh binding, whose unwinding passes power. End of Happy 'tis thou blind for thee. This recording is in the public domain. The Coulin by Sir Samuel Ferguson. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. From the Irish. Oh, had you seen the Coulin walking down by the Cuckoo Street, with the dew of the meadow shining on her milk-white twinkling feet? Oh, my love she is, and my colleen Og, and she dwells in Balnagar, and she bears the palm of beauty bright, from the fairest that in Erin are. In Balnagar is the Coulin, like the berry on the bough o' her cheek. Bright beauty dwells forever on her neck and ringlets sleek. Oh, sweeter is her mouth's soft music than the lark or thrush at dawn, or the blackbird in the greenwood singing farewell to the setting sun. Rise up, my boy, make ready to horse, for I forth would ride, to follow the modest damsel where she walks on the green hillside. For ever since our youth were we plighted in faith, truth, and wedlock true. Oh, sweeter her voice is 9 times over than organ or cuckoo. And ever since my childhood I've loved the fair and darling child. But our people came between us, and with lucre our pure love defiled. Oh, my woe it is, and my bitter pain, and I weep it night and day, that the colleen born of my early love is torn from my heart away. End of the Coulin. This recording is in the public domain. Irish Love Song by Catherine Tynan Hinkson. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. From the Irish. Would God I were that tender apple blossom, floating and falling from the twisted bough, to lie and faint within your silken bosom, as that does now. Or would I were a little burnished apple, for you to pluck me, gliding by so cold, while sun and shade your robe of lawn will dapple, your hair spun gold. Yea, would God I were among the roses that lean to kiss you as you float between, while on the lowest branch a bud uncloses to touch you, Queen. Nay, since you will not love, would I were growing a happy daisy in the garden path, that so your silver foot might press me going, even unto death. End of Irish Love Song. This recording is in the public domain. Cashel of Munster by Edward Walsh. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. From the Irish. I would wed you, dear, without gold or gear, or counted kine. My wealth you'll be, would fair friends agree, and you be mine. My grief, my gloom, that you do not come. My heart's dear hoard to Cashel fair, though our couch were there, but a hard deal board. O come, my bride, o'er the wild hillside to the valley low, a downy bed for my love I'll spread, where waters flow, and we shall stray where streamlets play, the groves among, where echo tells to the listening dells the blackbird's song. Love tender, true, I gave to you, and secret sighs, in hope to see upon you and me one hour arise, when the priest's blessed voice would bind my choice into the ring's strict tie. If wife you be, love, to one but me, love, in grief I'll die. A neck of white has my heart's delight, and breast like snow, and flowing hair, whose ringlets fair to the green grass flow. Alas! that I did not early die, before the day that saw me here, from my bosom's dear, far, far away. End of Cashel of Munster. This recording is in the public domain. Molly as Thor by George Ogle. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Elaine Conway, England. As down by Banner's banks I strayed, one evening in May, the little birds with blithest notes made vocal every spray. They sung their little notes of love, they sung them o'er and o'er. Ah, Grama Cree, Ma Colleen Og, Ma Molly as Thor. The daisies pied, and all the sweets the dawn of nature yields. The primrose pale, the violet blue, lay scattered o'er the fields. Such fragrance in the bosom lies of her whom I adore. Ah, Grama Cree, Ma Colleen Og, Ma Molly as Thor. I laid me down upon the bank, bewailing my sad fate, that doomed me thus, the slave of love, and cruel Molly's hate. How can she break the honest heart that wears her in its core? O Grama Cree, Ma Colleen Og, Ma Molly as Thor. You said you loved me, Molly dear. Ah, why did I believe? Yet who could think such tender words were meant but to deceive? That love was all I asked on earth, nay, heaven could give no more. Ah, Grama Cree, Ma Colleen Og, Ma Molly as Thor. Oh, had I all the flocks that graze on yonder yellow hill, or load for me the numerous herds that yon green pastures fill, with her I'd gladly share my kine, with her my fleecy store. Ah, Grama Cree, Ma Colleen Og, Ma Molly as Thor. Two turtle doves above my head sat courting on a bough. I envied them their happiness, to see them bill and coo. Such fondness once for me she showed, but now, alas, 'tis o'er. Ah, Grama Cree, Ma Colleen Og, Ma Molly as Thor. Then fare thee well, my Molly dear, thy loss I e'er shall moan. While life remains in Strephon's heart, it beats for thee alone. Though thou art false, may heaven on thee its choicest blessings pour. Ah, Grama Cree, Ma Colleen Og, me Molly as Thor. End of Molly as Thor. This recording is in the public domain.
Remembrance by Emily Bronte. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org, recording by Nemo. Cold in the earth, in the deep snow above thee, far, far removed, cold in the dreary grave, have I forgot, my only love, to love thee, severed at last by time's all-severing wave? Now, when alone, do my thoughts no longer hover over the mountains on that northern shore, resting their wings where heath and fern leaves cover thy noble heart for ever, evermore? Cold in the earth, and 15 wild Decembers from these brown hills have melted into spring. Faithful, indeed, is the spirit that remembers, after such years of change and suffering. Sweet love of youth, forgive if I forget thee, while the world's tide is bearing me along. Other desires and other hopes beset me, hopes which obscure but cannot do thee wrong. No later light has lighted up my heaven, no second morn has ever shone for me. All my life's bliss from thy dear life was given, all my life's bliss is in the grave with thee. But when the days of golden dreams had perished, and even despair was powerless to destroy, then did I learn how existence could be cherished, strengthened and fed without the aid of joy. Then did I check the tears of useless passion, weaned my young soul from yearning after thine, sternly denied its burning wish to hasten down to that tomb already more than mine. And even yet I dare not let it languish, dare not indulge in memory's rapturous pain. Once drinking deep of that divinest anguish, how could I seek the empty world again? End of Remembrance. This recording is in the public domain.
Lament of the Irish Maiden. From the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org by Sonia. Lament of the Irish Maiden, by Danny Lane. On Carrickdoon the heath is brown, the clouds are dark over Ardna Lee, and many a stream comes rushing down to swell the angry Ona Bhee. The moaning blast is sweeping fast through many a leafless tree, and I'm alone, for he is gone, my hawk has flown, Ochone Machree. The heath was green on Carrickdoon, bright shone the sun on Ardna Lee, the dark green trees bent trembling down to kiss the slumbering Ona Bhee. That happy day, 'twas but last May, 'tis like a dream to me, when Donald swore, aye o'er and o'er, we'd part no more, asthore Machree. Soft April showers and bright May flowers will bring the summer back again, but will they bring me back the hours I spent with my brave Donald then? 'Tis but a chance, for he's gone to France to wear the fleur de lis. But I'll follow you, my Donald do, for still I'm true to you, Machree. End of Lament of the Irish Maiden. This recording is in the public domain.
The Desmond from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Kudrna. By the fields we've benighted, no star in the skies, to thy door by love lighted, I first saw those eyes. Some voice whispered unto me, as the threshold I crossed, there was ruin before me, if I left, I was lost. Love came and brought sorrow, too soon in his train, yet so sweet that tomorrow were welcome again. Though misery's full measure my portion should be, I would drain it with pleasure, if poured out by thee. You who call it dishonor to bow to this flame, if you've eyes, look upon her, and blush while you blame. Had the pear lost whiteness because of its birth? Had the violet lost brightness for growing near earth? No, man for his glory to ancestry flies, but woman's bright story is still in her eyes. While the monarch but traces through mortals his line, beauty, born of the graces, ranks next to divine. End of the Desmond. This recording is in the public domain.
Love Song from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org, recording by Chad Horner from Ballyclare, County Antrim, Northern Ireland, situated in the northeast of the province of Ulster. Love Song. Sweet in her green dale, the flower of beauty slumbers, lulled by the faint breezes sighing through her hair. Sleeps she and hears not the melancholy numbers breathed to my sad lute mid the lonely air. Down from the high cliffs the rivulet is teeming to wind round the willow banks that lure him from above. Oh, that in tears from my rocky prison streaming, I too could glide to the bower of my love. Ah, where the woodbines with sleepy arms have wound her, opes she her eyelids in the dream of my lay, listening like the dove, while the fountains echo round her, to her lost mate's call in the forests far away. Come then, my bird, for the peace thou ever bearest, still heaven's messenger of comfort to me. Come, this fond bosom, O faithfulest and fairest, bleeds with its death wound, its wounds of love for thee. George Darley. End of Love Song. This recording is in the public domain.
If I Had Thought Thou Couldst Have Died by Charles Wolfe, from The Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org. If I had thought thou couldst have died, I might not weep for thee, but I forgot, when by thy side, that thou couldst mortal be. It never through my mind had passed, the time would ever be o'er, and I on thee should look my last, and thou shalt smile no more. And still upon that face I look, and think it will smile again, and still the thought I will not brook, that I must look in vain. But when I speak thou dost not say what thou never left'st unsaid. And now I feel as well I may, sweet Mary, thou art dead. If thou wouldst stay even as thou art, all cold and all serene, if I might press thy silent heart, and where thy smiles have been, while even thy chill bleak course I have, thou seemest still mine own, but there I lay thee in thy grave, and I am now alone. I do not think where'er thou art, thou hast forgotten me, and I perhaps may soothe this heart by thinking too of thee. Yet there was round thee such a dawn of light never seen before, as fancy never could have drawn, and never can restore. End of If I Had Thought Thou Couldst Have Died by Charles Wolfe. This recording is in the public domain.
A White Rose from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org. The red rose whispers of passion, and the white rose breathes of love. Oh, the red rose is a falcon, and the white rose is a dove. But I send you a cream white rosebud with a flush on its petal tips, for the love that is purest and sweetest has a kiss of desire on the lips. End of A White Rose. This recording is in the public domain.
Kitty Neal from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org. Ah, sweet Kitty Neal, rise up from that wheel. Your neat little foot will be weary from spinning. Come trip down with me to the sycamore tree. Half the parish is there, and the dance is beginning. The sun is gone down, but the full harvest moon shines sweetly and cool in the dew-whitened valley, while all the air rings with the soft loving things each little bird sings in the green shaded alley. With a blush and a smile, Kitty rose up the while, her eyes in the glass, as she bound her hair glancing. 'Tis hard to refuse when a young lover sues, so she couldn't but choose to go off to the dancing. And now on the green the glad groups are seen, each gay-hearted lad with the lass of his choosing. And Pat, without fail, leads out sweet Kitty Neal. Somehow, when he asked, she ne'er thought of refusing. Now Felix McGee puts his pipes to his knee, and with flourish so free sets each couple in motion. With a cheer and a bound the lads patter the ground. The maids move around just like swans on the ocean. Cheeks bright as the rose, feet light as the does, now coyly retiring, now boldly advancing. Search the world all round, from the sky to the ground, no such sight can be found as an Irish lass dancing. Sweet Kate, who could view your bright eyes of deep blue, beaming humidly through their dark lashes so mildly, your fair turned arm, heaving breast rounded form, nor feel his warm heart and his pulses throb wildly? Young Pat feels his heart, as he gazes, depart, subdued by the smart of such painful yet sweet love. The sight leaves his eyes, as he says with a sigh, Dance light, for my heart, it lies under your feet, love. End of Kitty Neal. This recording is in the public domain. Kathleen O'Moore, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org. My love, still I think that I see her once more, but alas, she has left me her loss to deplore. My own little Kathleen, my poor little Kathleen, my Kathleen O'Moore. Her hair glossy black, her eyes were dark blue, her color still changing, her smiles ever new. So pretty was Kathleen, my sweet little Kathleen, my Kathleen O'Moore. She milked the dun cow that ne'er offered to stir, though wicked to all, it was gentle to her. So kind was my Kathleen, my poor little Kathleen, my Kathleen O'Moore. She sat at the door one cold afternoon to hear the wind blow and to gaze on the moon. So pensive was Kathleen, my poor little Kathleen, my Kathleen O'Moore. Cold was the night breeze that sighed round her bower, it chilled my poor Kathleen, she drooped from that hour, and I lost my poor Kathleen, my own little Kathleen, my Kathleen O'Moore. The bird of all birds that I love the best is the robin that in the churchyard builds his nest. For he seems to watch Kathleen, hops lightly o'er Kathleen, my Kathleen O'Moore. End of Kathleen O'Moore. This recording is in the public domain. The Boatman of Kinsale, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org. His kiss is sweet, his word is kind, his love is rich to me. I could not in a palace find a truer love than he. The eagle shelters not his nest from hurricane and hail, more bravely than he guards my breast, the boatman of Kinsale. The wind that round the fast net sweeps is not a whit more pure. The goat that knocked down Shay he leaps has not a foot more sure. No firmer hand, no freer eye, ere faced an autumn gale. De Courcy's heart is not so high, the boatman of Kinsale. The brawling squires may heed him not, the dainty stranger sneer. But who will dare to hurt our cot when Miles O'Hay is here? His hookers in the skilly van, when seines are in the foam, but money never made the man, nor wealth a happy home. So blessed with love and liberty, while he can trim a sail, he'll trust in God and cling to me, the boatman of Kinsale. End of The Boatman of Kinsale. This recording is in the public domain.
Minnie, from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org. Recording by Kudrna. Oh, crystal bell, play dainty on golden sands, when she comes at morning lonely, followed by her shadow only, to bat those little slender hands. All a weary gathering, cease to make her bluebird sing. Oh, crystal bell. Oh, forest brown, breathe Irish's twilight balm, as she wanders, pulling willow, leafless for her fragrant pillow, which with snowy cheek and calm she shall press with half-closed eyes, while the great stars o'er thee rise. O forest brown. O lady moon, light her as she mounts the stair to her little sacred chamber, like a mother, and remember, while she slumbers full of prayer, sweetly then to fill her heart with dreams of heaven, where thou art, O Lady Moon. End of mini. This recording is in the public domain.
Song 1 from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org. Song 1 by Aubrey de Vere. Slanting both hands against her forehead, on me she levelled her bright eyes. My whole heart brightened as the sea, when midnight clouds part suddenly. Through all my spirit went the lustre, like starlight poured through purple skies. And then she sang aloud, sweet music, yet louder as aloft it clomb. Soft when her curving lips it left, then rising till the heavens were cleft, as though each strain, on high expanding, were echoes in a silver dome. But ah, she sings she does not love me, she loves to say she ne'er can love. To me her beauty she denies, bending the while on me those eyes, whose beams might charm the mountain leopard, or lure Jove's herald from above. End of Song 1. This recording is in the public domain. Recording by Stefan D'Souza. Song 2 from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org. Song 2 by Aubrey de Vere. She says, poor friend, you waste a treasure which you can ne'er regain, time, health, and glory, for the pleasure of toying with a chain. But then her voice so tender grows, so kind and so caressing. Each murmur from her lips that flows comes to me like a blessing. Sometimes she says, sweet friend, I grieve you. Alas, it gives me pain. What can I, might I relieve you? You ne'er had mourned in vain. And then her little hand she presses upon her heart and sighs, while tears, whose source not yet she guesses, grow larger in her eyes. End of Song 2. This recording is in the public domain. Recording by Stefan D'Souza. An Ancient Tale from the Book of Irish Poetry, Part 1, read for LibriVox.org. An Ancient Tale by John O'Hagan. He leaned upon the garden gate. He looked, and scarce he breathed. Within the little porch she safe, with woodbine overwreathed. Her eyes upon her work were bent, unconscious who was nigh. But oft the needle slowly went, and oft did idle lie. And ever to her lips arose sweet fragments sweetly sung, but ever, ere the notes could close, she hushed them on her tongue. Long, long the sun had sunken down, and all his golden trail had died away to lines of brown, in duskier hues that fail. The grasshopper was chirping still. No other living sound accompanied the tiny rill that gurgled underground. No other living sound, unless some spirit bent to hear low words of human tenderness and mingling whispers near. The stars, like pallid gems at first, deep in the liquid sky, now forth upon the darkness burst, sole kings and lights on high. For splendor, myriadfold, supreme, no rival moorlight strove, nor lovelier e'er was Hesper's beam, not more majestic Jove. But what if hearts there beat that night, that recked not at the skies, or only felt their image light in one another's eyes? And if two worlds of hidden thought and fostered passion met, which, passing human language, sought and found an utterance yet, and if they trembled as the stars that droop across the stream, the while the silent starry hours wait o'er them like a dream, and if, when came the parting time, they faltered still and clung, what is it all? An ancient rhyme, 10,000 times resung. That part of paradise which man, without the portal knows, which hath been since the world began, and shall be till its close. End of An Ancient Tale. This recording is in the public domain. Recording by Stefan D'Souza.